Chapter 922. Zhu Xuanyue's body was actually not cold, but less than 2 minutes after going to bed, she turned into an ice cube. It was bone-chilling. Charlotte's body quickly adapted. This was still the effect of the mysterious energy. Zhu Xuanyue hugged Charlotte tightly. Her legs were wrapped around his legs, and her hands were wrapped around his hands, as if she was afraid that he would slip away. Hugging Charlotte to sleep like this, she looked very comfortable and peaceful. Charlotte, on the other hand, looked very awkward and even a little nervous. He deliberately controlled his body. Otherwise, he would have lifted the blanket long ago. While enduring the slippery Zhu Xuanyue's harassment, Charlotte secretly thought of a question in his heart. She has a normal person's body. Logically speaking, she shouldn't be so cold, but when she's with me, she automatically turns into an ice cube. Could it be that I've seduced something in her body? Just like the two poles of a magnet, there won't be any reaction when they're far away, but once they're close, they'll connect? If that's true, why is that? While the man was thinking about this strange question, the woman rubbed her cheek against the man's chest and hummed comfortably. "It's so comfortable, Uncle Xia. I really want to be with you for the rest of my life and never be separated." "What if you're hungry?" Charlotte asked. "Then let's go eat. Don't you have to go to the kitchen to cook when you're hungry?" Zhu Xuanyue said. Then, she climbed onto Charlotte's body. Her posture was also very strange. Charlotte suddenly became nervous. What are you trying to do? Sleep? It's the most comfortable to sleep on your body," Zhu Xuanyue said, and then she really closed her eyes. After all, her mind was only a few years old, and she was still a child. She didn't know anything about the things between a man and a woman. So even if there was such an action and posture, it was definitely sleeping and nothing else. She closed her eyes to sleep, but Charlotte was extremely uncomfortable. He almost had to grit his teeth and use his ability to control his body at the same time to endure it. To distract himself, he shifted his gaze to the wardrobe in the room. Perhaps he wanted to be bored to the end, so he awakened the X-ray vision of his left eye. The wooden board of the wardrobe disappeared from his sight. Other than the clothes, there was also a doll that entered his sight. It was a high-end doll made of the best silicone material, and the details of its body were extremely realistic. Charlotte's heart skipped a beat, and an idea popped up in his mind. Once my Hattori wakes up, she'll definitely describe me and Zhu Xuanyue to the CIB and the police. The photo of me and Zhu Xuanyue will probably be on the wanted list in the U.S. within half an hour after she wakes up. I need to change my mask, and I also need to make a human skin mask for Zhu Xuanyue to disguise her. Silicone is one of the main materials used to make leather masks. The high-end dolls in his closet could help him solve this problem. After making a new human skin mask, what should I do next? Charlotte continued to ponder in his mind. Forsen is dead, and my first goal has been achieved. I have also given the U.S. government a response. Should I go to the AE Research Center next? Or should I go to the FA organization? According to the information he had, the AE Research Center was in the heavily guarded Area 51, which was almost impenetrable. Since the establishment of Area 51, no spy or agent of any country had ever obtained any information from Area 51. Wait, when thinking of Area 51, a face suddenly emerged in Charlotte's mind. It was his father, Xia Chang'e. Didn't my dad sneak into the AE Research Center and then steal the AE capsule from the research center? How'd he do it? Xia Chang'e never mentioned this past, and he had no way of knowing how his father, Xia Chang'e, did it. Enter Area 51? That's crazy. How did the U.S. get the AE capsule? This secret is indeed tempting, but even if I don't know, it won't affect me much. I don't have to take the risk. The most important thing right now is that the 4 major arms giants have formed an alliance, and they are arming the evil dog, the FA organization. Lockheed Martin Corporation will provide drones and precision-guided missiles for the FA organization. Although Forsen and Franco are dead, this plan will definitely be carried out. Why don't I beat them at their own game? A plan gradually took shape in his mind, and Charlotte couldn't help but smile. Snore, snore. Just as Charlotte was pondering the next step, Zhu Xuanyue had fallen asleep. A trace of saliva flowed from the corner of her mouth and dripped onto Charlotte's neck. Charlotte reached out and turned her over, but just as he was about to get up to make the human skin mask, Zhu Xianyue turned over and lay on his body, tightly entangling him. Moreover, he didn't wake her up during the whole process. Charlotte carried her down again, and then hurriedly stuffed a pillow into her arms before she turned over and pressed on top of him. Zhu Xianyue tightly wrapped the pillow and then lay on top of it to sleep. Charlotte quietly slipped out of the bed, looking at Zhu Xuanyue's raised, but he really wanted to slap it. But just as he raised his hand and pretended to spank her, Zhu Xianyue suddenly opened her eyes. "Uncle Xiao, what are you doing?" Charlotte was stunned for a moment, and then he put his hand down. "Why are you awake? Why are you under the bed? Come to bed." Zhu Xianyue got up from the pillow and looked at Charlotte eagerly. I want to make a human skin mask for you, and I also need to modify the one on my face. We have to change our faces, or we will be in trouble. I'm going to make a human skin mask, and I'll be back soon," Charlotte said. Zhu Xianyue thought for a moment. "Then you have to sleep with me tomorrow night." "Charlotte, promise me, promise me." Zhu Xianyue grabbed Charlotte's hand and shook it. Charlotte had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, Okay, I promise you." "Well, then I'll wait for you under the bed. Come and sleep with me after you make the mask." Zhu Xianyue smiled happily and then got under the bed again. Did she have any other hobbies besides sleeping? Charlotte shook his head with a bitter smile and then walked to the closet. He took out the high-end doll from the closet and then entered the house owner's study. In his backpack, he had the medicinal materials to change and make the human skin mask, and the house owner's high-end doll provided him with a lot of high-end silicone. In addition to the mask, he even had the materials to change the color of the skin. 2 hours later, 2 Mexican skin masks were freshly made. It was a man and a woman. The masks were both in their 20s, and they looked ordinary. This was necessary because beautiful people would attract attention no matter where they were, and this was exactly what the impersonator didn't want. In addition to the 2 Mexican masks, Charlotte also made a lot of brown skin. Mexicans were a mixed race of Indo-Europeans, and their skin was mainly brown. Their eyes and hair didn't look much different from Asians, which was also good for Charlotte and Zhu Xuanyue's disguise. After finishing the human skin mask, Charlotte first disguised himself. He put on the Mexican skin mask and then stuck the specially made brown skin on his body. He stood in front of the glass window of the study and checked by the reflection of the light. There was a slightly chubby young Mexican man in the glass window, and even he couldn't see any trace of Charlotte. This discovery made him happy. It seems that if I want to make more human skin masks in the future, I have to make some changes to my body. That way, even people who are familiar with me will have a hard time finding flaws in my body. There is still some time before dawn, but Charlotte didn't want to go back to that bed to sleep. Zhu Xianyue was happy to do that, but for him, it was a kind of torture. He sat in front of the desk, turned on the house owner's computer, and cracked the login password to enter the computer. The house owner was a manager of a securities company on Wall Street. His computer stored a lot of customer information and stock information. He had a photographic memory, and it was all stored in his brain. It was this information that triggered something, and a new idea popped up in his mind. My brain can operate like a computer, and I have mastered hacking skills. The U.S. stock market uses the T+0 trading rule, and I can instantly calculate the trend of the stock market and the movements of a single stock. I can either short or long, and I can make money at any time. The U.S. financial giants used to short the Hong Kong stock market, and for the past 2 years, they have also been shorting the China stock market. Why can't I do the same? The money from the U.S. stock market can help me expand my REMA group faster, and I can also use it to deal with the opponents I want to deal with. Charlotte was secretly excited, and he was eager to try. In the past, it was military invasions, and it was the same in World War I and World War II. Whoever had the strongest military power could wage war on the weaker countries, occupy their land, plunder resources, and enslave their people. Now, it was the era of financial wars. The European and American countries had never stopped their financial wars against the Third World countries, and their capital had been plundering the Third World countries. The U.S. set the rules of the world, and whoever it said was right, was right. Whoever it said was evil, was evil. The U.S. made the U.S. dollar the most powerful currency in the world, and it played an irreplaceable role in the global economy. Whoever wanted to shake the position of the U.S. dollar, then they would be in trouble. The European and American capital entered the Third World under the rules set by them and bought the mineral and forest resources of the surface world with pieces of paper. Their capital built OEM factories in the Third World, enslaved the Third World's labor, polluted the Third World's environment, and took away real money. The European and American people enjoyed the best welfare in the world, but who gave it to them? It was the slaves in Africa and the yellow faces in the OEM factories that developed China. No one had ever dared to make a move in the U.S. capital market because no one had the ability. But now it was different. A China kid was hatching an idea to make a move in the U.S. capital market, and he had the ability to do so. His fingers flew, and Charlotte entered 4 new accounts into the account file of the securities company where the homeowner worked. These 4 accounts were the accounts of 4 Italians, his 4 female knights, Giovanna, Stella, Rosa, and Teresa. Soon, $10 million was transferred from the Swiss bank to these 4 accounts. My knights, fight for me, charge. Charlotte's mouth showed a trace of a cold smile. Chapter 923. The light of dawn lifted the dark curtain, and the world entered daytime mode. The owner of the house was busy in the kitchen, frying eggs, making coffee, and making fruit and vegetable salad. His name was Hornick. He was a white man, 30 years old. For a securities manager, this was a very young age. However, he had excellent abilities in this area, which was why he could stand on Wall Street. Hornick was going to make 3 breakfasts, 1 for himself and 1 for the 2 hosts. Is he okay? In the living room, Charlotte withdrew his gaze from the direction of the kitchen and asked Zhu Xianyue, who was watching a cartoon program. Uncle Xia, what problem do you mean? Zhu Xianyue said, I asked you to hypnotize him and make him do things for us. Of course, I mean whether there is a problem with your hypnosis. Charlotte said. In his heart, he was a little worried about the ability of this little kid who was less than 10 years old. Last night, she messed up things, so he tried to prevent her from making the same mistake again. Zhu Xianyue raised the corner of her mouth. When I got up this morning, you instilled a lot of things into me. I did what you said. Do you still doubt that I did something wrong? I doubt if you're my real uncle. I'm not your real uncle, okay? Charlotte smiled bitterly. I just want to figure it out. This is very important. He instilled the theory and skills of modern hypnosis into her. He wanted her to deeply hypnotize a target without turning people into madmen or fools. Zhu Xianyue did it. Judging from Hornick's current reaction, she was successful. However, he still wanted to make sure again. Zhu Xianyue turned her head and whistled in the direction of the kitchen. Hornick ran out of the kitchen and went to Zhu Xianyue. Without saying anything, he knelt in front of Zhu Xianyue. Zhu Xianyue raised 1 foot. Xiao Nunu, wipe my shoes. On her feet was a pair of dirty leather shoes. As soon as she finished speaking, Hornick held her feet and wiped her shoes with his face and even his tongue. Before Hornick could clean her shoes, Zhu Xianyue said, Go clean Uncle Xia's shoes. Hornick crawled in front of Charlotte and wanted to wipe Charlotte's shoes. Charlotte hurriedly moved his foot away. Okay, I believe you. Let him cook. Zhu Xianyue stared at Charlotte. Have you forgotten? You taught me how to use keywords in the field of deep hypnosis. You can also command him. Did you set a keyword? Yeah, I've set a keyword. Zhu Xianyue looked very serious. Tell me, what are the keywords? Charlotte said. Zhu Xianyue raised her finger as she said, Uncle Xia, sleep. Uncle Xia sleeps naked. Uncle Xia is a bad guy. Charlotte, I don't have to use these keywords, but Uncle Xia, if you say these keywords to him, he will enter the state of deep hypnosis you described and listen to your command. If you don't believe me, you could try it. Zhu Xianyue held back her laughter. She wanted to hear Charlotte personally say the keywords she had set. Charlotte scratched Zhu Xianyue's nose with his finger and then said to Hornick, Uncle Xia, sleep. Uncle Xia sleeps naked. Uncle Xia is a bad guy. These keywords seemed to turn on some switch in Hornick's brain. His eyes suddenly changed and looked a little dull, but it needed to be observed carefully. Charlotte said again, "Roll." Hornick laid down on the carpet and then rolled over. Charlotte said, "Both of you roll." Hornick's body rolled twice on the carpet. When Charlotte asked him to roll, he rolled. When Charlotte asked him to roll twice, he rolled twice, not one more, not one less. He strictly followed Charlotte's instructions. Now, he was equivalent to a highly intelligent robot, executing Charlotte's instructions like a computer. In the future, even if Charlotte was not in the United States, he only needed to say the keywords on the phone to activate Hornick, and then Hornick would do things according to his instructions. With such a puppet working on Wall Street, his first step into the second battlefield was a very successful step. "Go cook," Charlotte said. Hornick turned and went into the kitchen. Zhu Xianyue pulled her feet out of the leather shoes and then put them on Charlotte's thigh. She acted like a spoiled child and said, "Uncle Xia, I will do whatever you ask me to do. I am so obedient. How will you reward me?" Charlotte said vigilantly, "What reward do you want? How about we take a hot bath and then go to sleep?" Zhu Xuanyue's eyes were full of yearning. Charlotte said angrily, "You just got up early in the morning and then go to sleep. Are you a pig? Don't make trouble. After breakfast, we have to go to the headquarters of Lockheed Martin Corporation." Zhu Xianyue suddenly pouted and looked very unhappy. Charlotte said to her, "Take a bath and sleep at night, okay?" Zhu Xianyue threw herself on Charlotte's body and was like a kitten in his arms. "Okay, it's getting dark. Hurry up and get dark." Charlotte sighed in his heart, but he didn't know why he sighed. Anyway, he had a headache. After breakfast, Hornick left his home and drove to New York. His vacation was supposed to last for 2 days, but Charlotte didn't want him to stay in Washington. In the second battlefield, he opened up. Hornick played a very key role. After Hornick left, Charlotte also left Hornick's home with Zhu Xianyue. He went to the second-hand car market and bought a Ford pickup truck. He drove to Bethesda in northwest Washington, where the headquarters of Lockheed Martin Corporation was. Also in that place was the National Naval Medical Center and the headquarters of Discovery Channel. Forson was dead, and the board of directors of Lockheed Martin Corporation would elect a new CEO. The plan between Lockheed Martin Corporation and the FA organization would not stop. Charlotte wanted to see what the drones and precision-guided missiles that Lockheed Martin Corporation gave to the FA organization were like. After a night of reflection, he also had a corresponding plan. The Ford pickup truck left the city and headed northwest. In the car, Zhu Xianyue looked at herself in the mirror and pouted. "It's so ugly. Uncle Xia, isn't your skill in making leather masks too bad? Can't you pinch my face to make it cute?" Charlotte said, "For now, when you finish what you have to do, you can return to your original appearance." "How long will it take?" "I'm not sure," Charlotte said. His purpose in coming to the United States was to use Zhu Xianyue to eliminate his opponents. He had already gotten rid of Forson, giving himself and the Lima group some breathing room. The targets he wanted to eliminate actually included my Hattori, but my Hattori escaped. But that was an accident, and it was not an unbearable failure. His next goal was the FA organization. Going directly to Mexico and using Zhu Xianyue to destroy the FA organization was a choice. This choice was the simplest, but also the most dangerous. The headquarters of the FA organization was in the Mexican state of Jalisco, which was the territory of drug lords. Even the Mexican army did not dare to set foot there. If there was a battle in Mexico, Zhu Xianyue could come back from the dead, but he couldn't. So he needed a careful and safe plan, and he could not rush it. Another choice was to use the cooperation between Lockheed Martin Corporation and the FA organization to tamper with the drones and precision-guided missiles delivered by Lockheed Martin Corporation to the FA organization. Of course, this was not all of his plans. He still had a backup plan, which was to hire armed groups with money. But with the Knights of the Hospital as an example, he did not want to use this plan. After a 2-hour drive, the Ford pickup truck arrived in Bethesda. Through the window, Charlotte looked at the headquarters of the Lockheed Martin Corporation. It was an 8-story brown building inlaid with blue glass. The logo of the Lockheed Martin Corporation shone on the wall of the building. As far as the headquarters of the Lockheed Martin Corporation was concerned, It was too ordinary, not even as beautiful as the buildings of some real estate companies in China. But it was the headquarters of the world's largest arms giant, Lockheed Martin Corporation. It was simple, but it was world famous. Behind the building was a wide factory area, where the famous F-35, F-16, F-22, F-117A, and other air weapons were produced. It was also because of the Lockheed Martin Corporation that the United States had an invincible military strength. Without it, the United States would not have been able to open up battlefields and build military bases around the world. At a glance, Charlotte was shocked. The Thunder Horse military factory had indeed achieved world-renowned results, but compared with the strength of the Lockheed Martin Corporation, it was still miles behind. The weapons of the Thunder Horse military factory were invincible on land, but the air weapons of the Lockheed Martin Corporation could win the war thousands of kilometers away. If they wanted to catch up with or even surpass the Lockheed Martin Corporation, then the Rema Group must research and manufacture air weapons. Uncle Xia, is that where you're going? The Lockheed Martin Corporation? Zhu Xinyue also saw it. She pointed to the vast factory area behind the headquarters of the Lockheed Martin Corporation and said, "I see a lot of planes." Charlotte said, "Yes, we're here. That's where I'm going." Zhu Xinyue said, "Uncle Xia, let's go and kill all the people inside and blow up all the planes." Her eyes sparkled with excitement, but Charlotte had a wry smile on his face. "Xinyue, that's the Lockheed Martin Corporation, the world's largest arms giant. Even you can't force your way in." "I don't believe it." "You don't believe it? The Lockheed Martin Corporation is equivalent to the heart of the United States Army. How can the United States not defend against it? If you attack by force, a precision-guided missile can blow you into pieces." Charlotte said. This was not an unfounded speculation. Once it was confirmed that Zhu Xinyue was an extremely dangerous enemy that ordinary soldiers could not kill, heavy weapons would definitely appear. In front of those weapons, even Zhu Xinyue would be blown into pieces. "Then what should we do?" Charlotte said. "Let's find a place to stay nearby and familiarize ourselves with the environment before making a decision." "Okay, let's go to sleep. You must be a pig." Chapter 924. Charlotte and Zhu Xinyue stayed in a hotel in a small town. This small town was called Free Mary. The origin of this name was said to be that at the beginning of the founding of the UA, a woman who dared to violate prohibition brewed cheap and delicious wine for everyone. In order to thank her, the town was named after her, and this woman was called Mary. Most of the residents in the town worked for Lockheed Martin Corporation. Most of them were ordinary workers on the production line. There were also management and design staff, but the number was very small. Because of income, this group of people rarely lived in their homes in the town. Most of the time, they lived in downtown Washington. This information was obtained by Charlotte from the internet, but it was definitely not obtained by hacking into Lockheed Martin Corporation. It was obtained from social media platforms. In this world, there was no fool hacker who would hack into Lockheed Martin Corporation because the company that programmed and produced the most software in the world was not Microsoft, but Lockheed Martin Corporation. Lockheed Martin Corporation invested a lot of manpower and material resources into software and smart technology every year. Its investment in this area was even greater than Microsoft. So, would it be weak in terms of defending against hackers? Lockheed Martin Corporation mastered the world's most advanced fighter technology, missile technology, drone technology, defense systems, military software technology, and so on. These technologies were the capital for the UA to dominate the world. How could the UA not focus on protecting them? Therefore, even with Charlotte's hacking skills, he didn't dare to hack into Lockheed Martin Corporation. There was only one result: asking for trouble. Since he couldn't use hacking methods, he could only think of other ways. After sitting down in the hotel, Charlotte took Zhu Xinyue to wander around the town. Charlotte bought a few sets of clothes for him and Zhu Xinyue, as well as some miscellaneous things such as cosmetics, panties, bras, and so on. After shopping, Charlotte took Zhu Xinyue to the only bar in the town. The name of the bar was Flaming Skull, which was a bit different. It was a popular place for the locals to spend their time, and it was also a good place for Charlotte to gather information. Don't cause any trouble after you go in. It's best if you don't do or say anything, understand? Charlotte warned. Zhu Xianyue looked very obedient. However, Charlotte knew that this was just an illusion. There were quite a number of people in the bar. Almost all of them were white, and there were only a few black people. Sir, what would you like to drink? The bartender was a young white girl with a plump figure and a freckled face. Red wine, 2 glasses of red wine, said Charlotte. The bartender went to the liquor cabinet to get some red wine. Charlotte saw her take the cheapest red wine and said, I don't want that. What's the most expensive red wine you have here? Of course it's Raffi. The bartender glanced at Charlotte, and a hint of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. But that's $100. Are you sure you want it? $100 was already a day's salary for ordinary people. Who would be willing to buy a glass of red wine with that amount of money? Charlotte said lightly, Am I saying that I can't afford it? You said that it's $100 a glass of red wine. I'll buy everyone here a glass. The bartender suddenly froze on the spot. Charlotte had already taken out his wallet and put a thick stack of dollars on the bar. Do you want to check if this money is real or fake? No. Sir, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'll pour it for you right away. The bartender smiled and became enthusiastic all of a sudden. There was a burst of whistles in the bar. Some people even raised their glasses to thank Charlotte for his generosity. Charlotte nodded and then quietly sat in front of the bar and drank. Sir, is this your first time in our town? The bartender poured wine for other customers, then returned to Charlotte's side and probed. Charlotte nodded. Yes, my sister and I came to the United States for a vacation. Why did you choose this place? The bartender asked. We're on a road trip. We're having fun on the way. Our destination is Washington. After a pause, Charlotte took out a few $100 bills and pushed them in front of the bartender. Sorry, I forgot to give you a tip. This is your tip. Wow. Thank you, sir. You're really a generous person. The bartender's face immediately blossomed into a smile. She boldly stuffed the tip that Xia Lei gave her in her bra. Just as the bartender stuffed the money, Charlotte winked at her. The bartender understood Charlotte's action. She moved closer to Charlotte's ear and whispered, I get off work at 10. Charlotte nodded. My name is Caitlin, the bartender said. My name is Costa, Charlotte said with a gentle smile on his face. Costa, if you need anything, just call me. I'm going to call someone else, Caitlin said with a smile. Charlotte said, Go ahead. I'll see you tonight. Actually, even if Caitlin didn't say her name, he knew her name. There were not many people in this small town. Many of them had accounts on Facebook and had set up a sharing platform that was similar to a circle of friends. The people in this small town liked to share their selfies, food, and family gatherings on it. He also saw Caitlin on that sharing platform. Before entering this bar, he didn't think about hitting on her. But when he saw her face, he suddenly remembered that she had taken a selfie next to a global hawk. Beside her was a white young man who was slightly older than her. The young man was her brother, Jack, a technician on Lockheed Martin Corporation's drone production line. When that picture appeared in his mind, Charlotte had the idea of hitting on her. Now he looked ordinary, and his skin was tanned. But for a man to hit on a girl, looks were actually the most important thing, as long as he had money. So he put in a lot of money and treated everyone in the bar to a glass of Lafite that was worth $100. A young white man walked over. He was holding a glass of red wine worth $100 that Xia Lei had treated him to. He didn't care if Charlotte was willing or not, and directly squeezed between Charlotte and Zhu Xuanyue's seats. Zhu Xianyue furrowed her brows, and a murderous glint flashed in her eyes. Charlotte quickly glared at Zhu Xianyue. Zhu Xianyue curled her lips, but didn't do anything else. The white young man didn't know that Charlotte had just saved his life. He rudely nudged Charlotte with his elbow. You're from Mexico, right? Yes, what can I do for you? Charlotte maintained his restraint and seemed very polite. Spending money like this, are you a drug dealer? The white young man's tone was full of provocation. I think the wine you treated me to is dirty. I'll return it to you. With that, the white young man raised the glass, tilted it, and poured the red wine on Charlotte's shoulder. Mike, Caitlin, who had just returned from refilling a customer's wine, said angrily, What are you doing? Oomph. You bitch. Mike roared from Caitlin. I invited you to barbecue, and you rejected me immediately. You only met a Mexican once, and you went out on a date with him. You bitch. You money-grubbing bitch. Mike suddenly reached out to grab Caitlin's collar. Charlotte suddenly stood up and punched Mike's lower abdomen. Mike's body suddenly bent, but before he could fight back, Charlotte's palm fell on his neck, and he fainted with one slap. The bar suddenly fell silent. No one had expected that an ordinary-looking Mexican kid could be so ruthless and powerful, knocking down the strong Mike in a second. Charlotte didn't want to make a move, even when Mike poured the glass of red wine on his shoulder. But since Mike attacked Caitlin, he had to make a move. Caitlin was his cousin, but his goal was certainly not to sleep with her, but to go to her house to steal something from her brother. He thought that her brother worked on the drone production line of Lockheed Martin Corporation and would more or less have something valuable. If he was lucky, he might even get information about the drone that Lockheed Martin Corporation was about to deliver to the FA organization. How could he let Caitlin down and ruin the date that he had spent a lot of money on? All eyes were focused on Charlotte. Charlotte said, "It's okay. All the drinks today are on me. You can drink as much as you want." There was a burst of applause in the bar, and soon no one remembered Mike, who was lying on the ground. "Thank you." Caitlin looked at Charlotte with shining eyes. Charlotte smiled. "I hate it when men bully women. Women are meant to be loved, not bullied. You're so funny. I can't wait for it to get dark." Caitlin winked at Charlotte. Charlotte also winked, then said with a smile, "Miss Caitlin, I'll pick you up at 9:30. "See you there," Caitlin said. Charlotte left the bar with Zhu Xianyue and walked to the hotel. "Uncle Xia, are you really going to pick up that freckled woman tonight?" Zhu Xianyue looked unhappy. "She's so ugly." Charlotte lowered his voice. "I'm going to steal something from her house tonight. Wait for me at the hotel." "I'm going with you," Zhu Xianyue said. "I don't need you for this kind of action. You just need to wait for me at the hotel." After a pause, Charlotte added, "Well, wait for me to come back. We'll sleep." "Okay, then I'll wait for you at the hotel." Zhu Xianyue suddenly smiled. Didn't that solve the problem? She was a terrible demon, but Charlotte had a trump card to deal with her. Walking along the streets of the town, Charlotte looked back at the bar, then his eyes moved in the direction of Lockheed Martin Corporation. Although they were separated by a distance of almost 2 kilometers, he could still see them clearly. In his left eye's field of vision, an F-35 that hadn't been painted yet soared into the sky from the runway of the test flight. It looked majestic. When will Rema Group be able to build such a fighter, he thought to himself. Chapter 925. On the monitor of the hacker's computer, there was a stock trading software, and on it was Giovanna's account. She had bought 5 stocks. 3 of them were losing money, and 2 of them were making profits. All in all, she had lost $100,000 out of a capital of $10 million. The accounts of the other 3 female knights were in the same situation. The 5 stocks that they had bought had gone up and down. However, Rosa, Teresa, and Stella had made a small profit on their accounts, adding up to about $50,000 in profit. For accounts and a capital of $40 million, losing $50,000 in a day was not considered a failure. Moreover, Charlotte had bought the stocks on his phone while he was driving. He had not selected them at all and had just bought them casually. After buying them, he had left them there and had not entered the market to trade them. He had his own plans. He could not use his brain's advanced analysis and deduction ability to let the 4 accounts make millions or even tens of millions in a short period of time. If he did so, it would attract attention. He was now losing money every day. Only when the trading figures were up and the matters on this side were settled would he start to play stocks. That was something that he had to do personally. That puppet securities manager, Hornick, could not do what he did at all. If one wanted to fish, one had to set the bait first. In the stock market, whether it was the banker who harvested the leaks or the individual investors who attacked the banker, they had to be patient and be willing to let the other party make money. "Uncle Xia, who's selling this thing?" Zhu Xianyue moved closer to Charlotte and pressed her head on his head, watching the stock market with Charlotte, who was sitting on a chair. Charlotte said, "Why are you asking this?" Zhu Xianyue said. Why do we have to go through so much trouble? We can find the person who is selling this thing and use the method you taught me to hypnotize him. Then we can ask him to give it to you for free. Isn't that enough? Charlotte laughed. That's the world's largest stock market. People all over the world trade in that market. Some buy and some sell. Can you hypnotize everyone? A lot of people. Then forget it. Zhu Xianyue immediately lost interest and moved her head away from Charlotte's head. Charlotte closed his hacker's computer, stood up, and said, There will be a chance for you to make a move, but let me figure out the situation first. Who do you want me to hypnotize? Zhu Xianyue was interested again. Charlotte said, No target yet. Caitlin's brother might be a target, but I need to figure out if he has value as a puppet. If he doesn't, I need to use him and Caitlin to get in touch with the valuable people in Lockheed Martin. That time, you'll have a chance. Yes. Zhu Xianyue nodded heavily. I'll turn whoever you want me to turn into a puppet. Xiao Lei patted her on the head. All right, it's about time. I have to go see Caitlin. Come back early. I'll wait for you in bed, Zhu Xianyue said. Charlotte had a headache, but he still nodded. He left the hotel and walked towards the Flaming Skull Bar. Snowflakes were falling from the sky. It wasn't a heavy snowfall, but the roofs and ground were still covered in snow. It was white as far as the eye could see. The street lights had lost their function. Even without their illumination, the black asphalt road could be seen in the snow. Because of the cold weather, there were no pedestrians on the streets of the town. After a while, Charlotte saw the Flaming Lips bar in front of him. There were many motorcycles parked there. I knocked out that mic. I hope he won't cause trouble for me again. If he does, I can only let Zhu Xianyue eat him, Charlotte thought. A black shadow suddenly flashed in front of him. Charlotte stopped in his tracks. The black shadow moved very quickly, but he still saw it clearly. It was a cat, but he wasn't the kind of person who would be scared by a cat. He stopped in his tracks and maintained his vigilance because when the black cat crossed the road, he felt a trace of unease in his consciousness. As he evolved, his sixth sense was far sharper than a normal person's. The black cat left a string of plum blossom footprints in the snow and quickly disappeared. Charlotte suddenly looked in the direction that the black cat jumped out from. There was a very small church in that direction. There was a cross on the V-shaped roof. The feeling of impending danger quickly rose. Under that kind of feeling, Charlotte felt that something terrifying could appear from any direction, attack him, and then tear him to pieces. There were only two people who could make him so afraid. One was Zhu Xianyue, and the other was the black-robed man. As for Zhu Xianyue, he didn't have to suspect her. She was waiting for him to go back to bed. Other than Zhu Xianyue, the only one left was the black-robed man. However, the sixth sense of impending danger had risen to the extreme, but the black-robed man still didn't appear. Charlotte took a deep breath and shouted in the direction of the small church. Is that you? Stop hiding, come out. No one responded, and no one appeared. The wooden door of the small church was closed. I can see you, Charlotte said. As he spoke, he activated the ability of his left eye and looked through the door to find the hidden person. The small church was empty. There was no light and no one. In front of a few rows of wooden pews, there was a podium for the priest to preach and celebrate Mass. Behind the podium was a cross with a statue of Jesus on it. When Charlotte saw the statue of Jesus, Jesus' dark eyes stared at Charlotte. There was no mercy. The eyes were deep and dark like they were going to swallow him up. Charlotte was shocked by the strange look in Jesus' eyes. However, when he locked his left eye on the statue, the eyes of the statue returned to normal. It was looking down at him at a 45-degree angle, full of mercy and mercy. Charlotte had no idea what had happened. The strangest thing was the premonition of impending danger had disappeared. Recalling the whole process, Charlotte felt like he had just experienced an illusion. It was like there was something wrong with his brain and nothing had really happened. If it is the black-robed man, why would he appear here? He gave me 3 years, and now I have more than 2 years. Someone like him wouldn't go back on his word, right? If he really came, then his goal. Charlotte suddenly turned around. His left eye pierced through the darkness and the wall of the hotel hundreds of meters away. He saw Zhu Xianyue. She was lying on the bed, sleeping. Her bra was thrown on the quilt, and her underwear was inside. He hadn't gone back yet, but she was already in sleeping mode. Charlotte looked away and let out a long sigh of relief. Maybe it was really an illusion. I was too nervous. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. Then he continued to walk to the Flaming Skull bar. He had maintained a high level of vigilance along the way, but nothing out of the ordinary happened again. That terrifying sense of crisis did not appear either. Maybe it was really an illusion. When he walked to the door of the bar, Charlotte looked at the Patek Philippe watch on his hand. There were still a few minutes before the appointment time with Caitlin. He didn't go in. Instead, he waited at the door. A middle-aged white man walked out of the bar. When he saw Charlotte, he said warmly, "My Mexican friend, I'm so happy to see you." Charlotte smiled and nodded. "My friend, I'd like to talk to you, but I have to tell you that Caitlin is in trouble," the middle-aged white man said. The middle-aged white man said, "Mike is here with the biker gang. They won't let Caitlin go. I think they're waiting for you to deal with you. You better leave now." Charlotte frowned. He was pretending to hit on Caitlin. He was just using Caitlin's connections in this small town. He didn't expect that Mike would be jealous of him and keep causing trouble for him. The middle-aged white man saw that Charlotte didn't have any special reaction. He shrugged again. "I knew you wouldn't be afraid of those people, but I still have to remind you that the biker gang might have guns." "Thank you, friend." Charlotte held out his hand. "My name is Costa. I work in my family's company. Nice to meet you." "That's nice. My name is Thon. I work at Lockheed Martin Corporation." Thon laughed self-deprecatingly. "My friend, I can't be compared to you. My salary isn't even enough for you to treat me to a round of drinks." Making money is actually a very easy thing to do. If you want, we can have a cup of coffee or something tomorrow. We can have a good chat, Charlotte said. But now I have to solve the problem. My friend, are you really going in? Of course, I'm not the kind of person who can be scared by a few gangsters, Charlotte said. In that case, I'll go in with you, Thon said. Thon said, I have a good relationship with the sheriff of the town. Mike will give me some face. Thank you so much. Let's go in together. Charlotte and Thon entered the bar. As soon as he entered the bar, Xiaolei saw Mike and Brother Jay, a burly man in biker leather. Caitlin surrounded them, and she looked nervous. When Charlotte and Thon entered the bar, Caitlin saw Charlotte. She waved at Charlotte anxiously. Go, go. Mike also saw Charlotte. He pointed at Charlotte. It's this Mexican guy. It's him. A few burly men wearing leather motorcycle jackets surrounded them. Thon said, Mike, don't make trouble. Mr. Costa is a friend of mine, for the sake of... Without waiting for Thon to finish his sentence, Mike interrupted him. Shut up. I'm going to cripple this Mexican guy today. No one is allowed to interfere. You. Thon was angry. Mike walked in front of Thon and pushed him savagely. Thon was pushed back 2 steps. Thon wanted to say something, but he was frightened by Mike's momentum. He didn't dare to say anything. A motorcyclist did the same thing and pushed his palm towards Xiaolei. Chapter 9:26. Charlotte grabbed the hand of the motorcyclist, pulled him forward, and immediately pulled the motorcyclist into his arms. The motorcyclist tried to push Charlotte away, but Charlotte's feet were like a tree rooted to the floor. He couldn't be pushed at all. F***CK. Mike pulled out a knife and said fiercely, cripple him. The other motorcyclist also showed signs of making a move. However, at this moment of mutual hostility, Xiaolei whispered into the ear of the motorcyclist he had pulled into his arms. I'm friends with Ojeda. You should think about her style before you touch me. Who was Ojeda? Mexico's notorious female drug lord, who killed and dismembered people without blinking. Her subordinates were all vicious people. Even the Mexican government had a headache with her. How could a small motorcycle gang dare to provoke such a demonic neighbor? The motorcyclist whose hand was held by Charlotte raised his hand, signaling his companions not to move. The motorcyclist who was about to make a move suddenly stopped. Of course, Charlotte didn't know the female drug lord in Mexico, but he knew that it was impossible for the motorcyclist gang in front of him to confirm this matter. Xiaolei then whispered in his ear, Perhaps we can use another method to solve this problem. I'll give each of you $1,000 to take that guy out and beat him up. How about that? 2,000. The motorcyclist whose hand was held by Charlotte said, Mike is our friend. You have to give 2,000 to beat up a friend. There are 5 of us. You know how much money we have to give. We only accept cash. Charlotte nodded slightly. No problem. Money wasn't everything, but it was true that money could solve most problems. The leading motorcyclist said, Mike, do you know what kind of trouble you've caused us? You bastard. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly punched Mike in the face. Mike immediately fell to the ground. The leader of the motorcycle men gave him a look, and his brothers dragged Mike to the back door of the bar. What are you doing? We are friends. Mike obviously didn't know what had happened. Shut up, you idiot. A motorcyclist threw a punch at him. A few minutes later, a young, sexy Caucasian girl was walking to her house with Charlotte's arm. Mike was being beaten in the alley behind the bar, but Charlotte wasn't interested in watching. To the current him, a hooligan like Mike was equivalent to an ant. He could crush him with a single finger. Costa, why me? Caitlin held onto Charlotte's arm tightly, rubbing her plump, soft body against Charlotte's arm. Women were born to know how to make a man happy, and she was an expert at it. Why are you asking me such a question? Charlotte asked. You're so rich and powerful. I'm just an ordinary girl, Caitlin said, avoiding Charlotte's eyes. She was watching Charlotte's reaction out of the corner of her eye. Charlotte smiled. You look like my mother. I can't help but think of her when I see you. I love my mother, and I feel very close and comfortable with you. I'm sorry, Caitlin said apologetically. It's okay, Charlotte said. Caitlin suddenly wrapped her arms around Charlotte's waist and gave him a kiss. It was indeed a fragrant kiss. She seemed to have been prepared to be intimate with Charlotte. Not only did she spray a fragrant perfume on her body, but she even rinsed her mouth with a minty mouthwash. Charlotte was very into the kiss, and his hands and feet were all over her. If he didn't have the intention of using her, he wouldn't have kissed her at all. But now he was pretending to be lecherous. Not only did he French kiss her, but he also put his hand under her clothes. No, it's too cold here. My house is very warm. Caitlin grabbed Charlotte's climbing hand. Charlotte pulled his hand away and asked tentatively, Is there anyone else in your house? I live with my brother, but don't worry about him. He's a workaholic. He never interferes with my friends, Caitlin said. Charlotte smiled. I think I can be friends with him. Let's go. Caitlin's house was next to the town. It was a wooden bungalow that looked simple. It wasn't hard to tell her family's financial situation from the value of the house. She was a real Cinderella. Otherwise, she wouldn't work in a bar. In front of the wooden house was an asphalt road that led to the headquarters of Lockheed Martin Corporation. There was an old Buick Regal parked on the side of the road. It was a low-end car in America. On the driver's seat was a Lockheed Martin Corporation uniform. The fabric was stained with oil. It explained a few things. The car belonged to Caitlin's brother, Jack, who held a very low position at Lockheed Martin. Seeing Jack's uniform, Charlotte regretted spending so much effort to get Caitlin. A low-level pilot didn't have much value to him. This thought even made him have the urge to turn around and leave, but he still endured it. If I don't get in touch with her brother, if I don't go in and take a look, how am I going to find anything valuable? Charlotte convinced himself. Yes, there was gold in the sand. If one didn't look for gold, the sand would always be sand. This is my house. I'll go open the door. Caitlin let go of Charlotte's arm. She picked up the key from under the carpet in front of the door and opened the door. Charlotte's left eye twitched slightly. The vision of his left eye was like an invisible wind blowing through the space. He quickly saw a blond young man in a room. He was reading a very professional book about drones. There was a cup of coffee beside him. The coffee was no longer warm, but he hadn't touched it yet. Caitlin's description was very appropriate. Her brother was a workaholic. Caitlin pulled Charlotte into her house. As soon as she entered, she jumped into Charlotte's arms and kissed Charlotte's lips. Her hand also reached for Charlotte's belt. She was about to untie Charlotte's belt. Western girls were good at everything, except for this. Once they met, it was not a problem at all. The time and place were also not a problem. Charlotte kissed her passionately. He moved his feet. When he moved to the side of the coffee table, he quietly reached out and pushed a glass of water on the coffee table. The glass of water fell from the coffee table, shattering into pieces with a bang. Oh, I'm sorry, Charlotte said loudly. I broke your glass. Caitlin looked at Charlotte with fire in her eyes. It's nothing. It's just a glass. You don't have to apologize. Let's continue. I already. She moved closer to Charlotte's ear. I want you. Fortunately, she didn't say that she was already very wet. She was still quite reserved. Charlotte smiled. We can have a drink first, and then Caitlin put her hands on Charlotte's chest and pushed him back. Charlotte's heel hit the sofa. Before he could move, Caitlin pressed her whole body against him and fell on the sofa with him. It was another passionate kiss. Caitlin was like a fish out of water. Her small mouth greedily sucked in air. Charlotte didn't know how much air she sucked in, but he knew that she sucked in a lot of his saliva. She was really a passionate woman who would ignite at the slightest spark. In this aspect, she took the initiative that was hard to refuse. In the chaos, Charlotte's belt was untied and his zipper unzipped. Just as Caitlin was about to do something, footsteps came from a hallway behind the sofa and a man's voice. Caitlin, what are you doing? Caitlin looked up hurriedly, but there was no embarrassment on her face. Jack, I thought you were asleep. Charlotte hurriedly zipped up and buckled his belt. He actually knew that Jack had come out. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let Caitlin molest him. In the process, just now, it was actually very simple for him to stop it. Jack walked over. I fell asleep, and you slept with a man in the living room? If you want to bring a man home, you should do it in your room. This house doesn't belong to you alone. Jack, Caitlin was a little embarrassed. She glared at Jack and wanted to scold him, but she held back. She didn't want to leave a bad impression in front of Charlotte. Charlotte walked up to Jack and held out a hand. Hello, Jack. I'm Costa. Nice to meet you. Jack didn't move. He looked at Charlotte's hand. You didn't touch her there, did you? Charlotte was speechless. Was he really her brother? Ignore him. Let's go to my room. Caitlin took Charlotte's hand and prepared to go to her room. Jack said, Caitlin, this month's utilities, kitchen utensils, and ingredients add up to $1,000. You have to pay $500. I'll pay you in a few days when I get paid, Caitlin said. Jack frowned. That's what you said last month, but you still owe me $200. You're an adult. Do you want me to pay for your living expenses? Caitlin's face turned red. She was so angry that she couldn't speak. Charlotte said, Caitlin, I'll pay for you. Is that okay? Although Caitlin said that, she didn't refuse when Charlotte took out his wallet. Charlotte took out a bundle of dollars from his wallet that hadn't even been unwrapped. He tossed it to Jack. Here's $10,000. I'll pay for her living expenses for the next year. Jack grabbed the bundle of new US dollars and froze on the spot, speechless. When he saw that his sister brought back a swarthy Mexican, he was very unhappy. White people, especially American white people, were a bit racist. Of course, he wouldn't be happy when a Mexican kid took his sister away. That was why he came over to mock him. He actually wanted his sister to drive Charlotte away. He didn't expect this Mexican kid to be a rich man, and such a generous one at that. He casually gave him 10,000 USD. With this amount of money, this Mexican kid could buy 200 women who were more beautiful than his sister to spend the night with. Oomph. Are you happy now? Now it was Caitlin's turn to be proud. Mr. Costa, Jack said tentatively. What do you do? Chapter 927. Charlotte shrugged slightly. Are you asking about my job? I work at my father's company. Well, it's mainly a family business. After a pause, he said, I know that some Americans have a certain prejudice against us Mexicans. When they see us, they will associate us with drugs and gangs. But I want to tell you that our family does legitimate business, energy, chemicals, real estate, and what? Jack asked. Charlotte smiled. My friend, our family has nothing to do with drugs. You can rest assured about that. Here's the thing. Our family does venture capital. As long as we think it's creative and promising, we won't be stingy with funding. You do venture capital too? Jack looked surprised. Charlotte said, yes. As long as you have a suitable project, money is not a problem. Jack looked at his sister, Caitlin, and then at Charlotte. Finally, his eyes fell on the stack of dollars that Charlotte had given him. In fact, if it weren't for the stack of dollars in his hand, he would never have believed what Charlotte had said. However, Xiaolei had unreasonably thrown $10,000 at him, which made him unsure of what to do. Who would throw money at someone for fun, and $10,000 at that? Who else but those billionaires? Charlotte was really a billionaire. He might not be the best in the world when it came to spending money, but he was definitely in the top 3. Costa, let's go. Caitlin held Charlotte's hand, looking very intimate. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the stack of dollars in Jack's hand. As soon as her Costa left, she would definitely ask for the money back. Jack seemed to realize something. He put the money in his pocket and smiled. Mr. Costa, you're our distinguished guest. Why don't we have a drink? Charlotte said, Okay, let's have a drink. Caitlin glared at Jack, but since Costa said he wanted a drink, she couldn't force him into her room to do that kind of thing. Would a man like Costa be sure of women? If she wanted to capture his heart, she couldn't be in a hurry to take off her pants. She had to be reserved. Jack took a bottle of whiskey and 3 glasses from the liquor cabinet. He poured one for Charlotte, Caitlin, and himself. Cheers to our acquaintance. Jack raised his glass. The 3 of them clinked their glasses and drank while chatting. Mr. Costa, what's the name of your family's company in Mexico? Jack asked Charlotte after 2 or 3 drinks. Charlotte thought to himself, why does this idiot have so many questions? Under normal circumstances, he should be trying to please me, but he's been testing me. This guy doesn't look like an ordinary technician. Could it be that he has some other identity? Mr. Costa? Charlotte frowned. Mr. Jack, your questions make me feel like I'm talking to the police. I'm really sorry. I just want to know more about you. After all, you're dating my sister now. Jack said, very tactfully. Caitlin said unhappily, Jack, that's very rude. You should apologize to Mr. Costa. Jack said, I'm sorry, Mr. Costa. I'm really sorry. It's okay. It's okay to tell you, Charlotte said. Sky Group. My family's company in Mexico is called Sky Group. You can look it up. You can find it. He wasn't worried at all that Jack would find out. He dared to say it because he had been prepared for this. Before he came, he had hacked into the Mexican Business Administration and planted the name Sky Group in their file system. Even the Google search engine was no exception. He had already prepared the relevant terms long ago. That's not necessary. I trust you completely, Mr. Costa. Well, you sit down. I want to talk to my sister. Is that okay? Jack said. Charlotte said, Of course. Can't we talk here? Caitlin looked reluctant. Come to my study. I'll only take a few minutes. You don't want me to take up more of your time, do you? Jack said, Okay, just a few minutes. Caitlin leaned over and kissed Charlotte on the cheek. Wait for me. Charlotte nodded. He watched the siblings walk down the hallway and into a room at the end. It was Jack's study. Just as Jack closed the door, his left eye twitched slightly, and the door of the study quietly disappeared from his sight. Jack was talking to Caitlin. Caitlin was the first to speak. She was angry. Jack, are you an idiot? Are you trying to ruin my happiness? Calm down, Jack said. Only the real rich would spend money like this. Would a rich man like you? I'm not trying to hurt you, but if he wants to play with women, he can have hundreds of women to sleep with the money he gives me. That's for me. You have to pay me back what I owe you. Also, if you call me here to talk about this, then we don't have to talk anymore. Caitlin held out her hand, looking like she was asking for money. Jack took out a bunch of new bills and gave them to Caitlin. He didn't take any of them. Charlotte was surprised and curious. He said to himself, he acted like a greedy man just now. But I gave him the money. Caitlin asked him for money, and he didn't keep any for himself. He gave it all to Caitlin. This Jack isn't simple. Charlotte wasn't the only one who was surprised. Caitlin was shocked too. You gave it all to me? Jack lowered his voice. You're my sister. Of course I want you to live a good life and find your own happiness. But I'm worried that you'll be tricked by someone with ulterior motives. What do you mean? Are you out of your mind? Caitlin said sarcastically. Who would trick me with so much money? Why would I be tricked? It's just sex. I can give him everything I have. Keep your voice down. Jack's voice was even smaller. Do you know where this place is? This is Free Mary. Next to this town is Lockheed Martin Corporation. Do you know how many CIA agents are operating around here? And military personnel. This is the heart of the American Army. Every year, they arrest some spies here. They give you whatever they want. You do get some benefits. But if you're caught, it's treason. You don't even have to go to court. You'll be sent straight to Guantanamo Bay. Caitlin shrugged. I don't have any military secrets to give him. Even if he's a spy, what can he get from me? Boobs and bitches? If so, I don't mind at all. Enough. Jack was a little angry, but he quickly controlled himself. He whispered into Caitlin's ear. You don't have it, but I do. I worked hard for years to join Mr. Thompson's team. Thompson thinks highly of me. He asked me to build a predator bee. According to his request, the predator bee's body has no markings, and it needs to be equipped with a self-destruct mechanism. Although I don't know why I'm doing this, I have a feeling that it's not normal. Mr. Thompson promised me that once I finish this job, he'll give me a promotion and a raise. Then I can get you in. Don't you always want to work at Lockheed Martin Corporation? I can help you fulfill your wish. When Jack finished, Caitlin looked back at the door of the study. Her voice also became smaller. Jack, do you mean he's a spy? I'm not sure, but I have to be on guard. Our government often says that Chinese spies do bad things, but never Mexican spies do bad things. Are you too nervous? Caitlin said, if he was Chinese, I would have reported him. I didn't do it because he's Mexican. Tell me, why would a person like him like you? Because I look like his mother. Have you seen his mother? Not really. Caitlin then said, you're too nervous. Let me tell you, Mr. Costa is a big shot who can use dollars to barbecue. Don't ruin my relationship with him. You do your job, I'll fish for my man. Let's not interfere. Think about it. If I could marry him, do you still need to work? I can buy you a sports car and give you some money to start your business. Isn't that better? You can keep on dreaming. I won't interfere. You can give me half of the money. Jack held out his hand. Caitlin hesitated for a moment, but she still gave half of the money to Jack. But the amount she gave Jack was obviously less than what she had in her hand. The conversation between the siblings ended, and Xia Lei retracted his gaze. Before he came here, he regretted spending so much money and putting in so much effort without any results. However, he didn't expect that his method of panning for gold on the beach would really bring him some gold. He didn't expect Jack to be the technician in charge of making the drone to assassinate him. He's making a drone to blow me up, and he's even going to install a self-destruct device on the drone. He wants to kill me, but he won't even leave a single drone for Hua Nation. What a clever plan. Xia Lei's lips curled into a smile. He also saw Jack and Caitlin in a new light. Jack and Caitlin were siblings who depended on each other. They were actually very close. They didn't seem to get along, but that was just because of their personalities. Jack was careful, hardworking, and worked hard for a better life. Caitlin was lazy, open, and passionate. She, too, wanted a better life. Living a better life was probably the biggest wish of ordinary people, right? It was also the wish that they were most willing to work hard for. Caitlin and Jack returned to the living room. Mr. Costa, you guys talk, Jack said. I'm sleepy. I'm going to my room to rest. Caitlin said, let's go to my room. We'll get drunk if we keep drinking. Charlotte stood up and said, I'm so sorry. I just got a call from my sister. She said she had something urgent for me to take care of. I have to go. Thank you for your hospitality. You. Caitlin was stunned. Mr. Costa, are you like this because of me? If so, I apologize again, really. Jack was regretting it. No, it's true, Charlotte said. Boom. A loud explosion came from the north side of town. Flames shot into the sky. Chapter 928. Charlotte dashed out of Caitlin's house. The place where the explosion happened was the motel, and it was already engulfed in flames. Caitlin and Jack also ran out of their house. Isn't that a motel? Caitlin looked nervous. Costa, are you and your sister staying in that motel? Charlotte didn't speak. He started running toward the motel. He thought about what happened on the way to the bar, and he had a strong feeling that danger was coming. He saw the strange look of Jesus in the small church. At that time, he thought it was just an illusion and not the black-robed man chasing after him. But now it seemed like it wasn't an illusion. Did the black-robed man blow up the motel? Did Zhu Xinhua fight him? That was what Charlotte wanted to know the most. Charlotte soon reached the road in front of the motel. The road was already filled with people. They were all residents of the small town. His eyes quickly scanned the crowd. but he didn't see Zhu Xianhua. He then looked into the sea of fire with his left eye, but before he could search carefully, the wooden motel collapsed in the sea of fire. A fire truck came roaring, and the firemen asked the onlookers to step back. The sheriff of the small town also came to ask the residents about the cause of the explosion, but no one could say for sure. Charlotte moved his eyes in one direction, and he saw his Ford pickup truck. It was damaged in the explosion, but it wasn't destroyed. The driver's window was destroyed by the explosion, and he saw something white on the driver's seat. It was a piece of paper. Charlotte's left eye moved slightly, and the paper seemed to be pulled to him in an instant. There was a box drawn on the paper, and it was placed on top of a ball of fire. Below the fire, there were two Chinese characters, destroy. Charlotte couldn't move his eyes. The box on the paper was just a simple shape, but he knew that it was an ancient alloy box. The person who left the paper was the black-robed man. Charlotte was sure of that. Why did he leave me this piece of paper? Do I have to destroy the box? If he was, then why didn't he destroy the box himself, since he was so powerful? If he wants to do that, no one could stop him. Charlotte couldn't understand what was going on. What worried him even more was the safety of Zhu Xianhua. She was very strong, there was no doubt about that, but her mind was not even 10 years old. How could a child defeat the black-robed man? Rumble. The pickup truck suddenly exploded. The surrounding townspeople were shocked and hurriedly dodged and retreated. The firefighters who were extinguishing the fire also laid on the ground, and the scene suddenly became a mess. It gave people the feeling that there was a bomb in the pickup truck, and it exploded when the time was right. But Charlotte didn't think so, because there was no smell of gunpowder in the air. No matter what kind of bomb it was, explosives would definitely be an essential component, so smoke would also be indispensable. However, there was none. This reminded him of what had happened in New Delhi, India. The black-robed man suddenly appeared and interfered with Zhu Xuanyue's resurrection. After the black-robed man entered the lab, there was a violent explosion, but there was no bomb in the lab. Even if there were chemicals, they were medical chemicals. Even if there was an explosion, it couldn't reach the level of that one. The black-robed man and Zhu Xianyue are both in the form of pure energy. The collision of energy resulted in a violent explosion. Why would the black-robed man fight Zhu Xianyue? What's his goal? To stop Zhu Xianyue or to kill her? Charlotte's head was filled with questions. Caitlin and Jack came too. Caitlin walked to Charlotte and hugged him lightly. She said with concern, "Costa, your sister." Charlotte was silent for a moment before saying, "I don't know. I hope she left in time." "Don't worry. God will protect her." Caitlin comforted Charlotte. Jack didn't come to comfort Charlotte. He talked to a familiar townsman. "What happened?" "I don't know. I heard the gas pipe leaked." "Where is everyone? Where are the people in the hotel?" Even someone couldn't have survived such an explosion. Is there any other possibility? Other possibility? Are you talking about a terrorist attack? That's impossible. I was outside at the time. I didn't see anyone go in or come out. Plus, would a terrorist be stupid enough to blow up a small hotel here? It's worthless. When Xiaolei heard this discussion, he became even more worried. I don't see anyone coming out. The black-robed man is a pure energy body, but Zhu Xianyue has a body now. It's impossible for her to disappear into thin air like the black-robed man. Could it be that the black-robed man won their battle? She's dead? Zhu Xianyue was dead? When the thought popped up, Charlotte denied it. She couldn't really die. Her current body was like her clothes. Even if it was destroyed, it was just a piece of clothing. If she wanted to, she could change the time and place to make her clothes again. Also, the explosion that happened in New Delhi last time was more intense than this one, but she survived the sea of fire. At that time, she was obviously weaker than she was now. The black-robed man couldn't kill her when she was at her weakest, let alone now. With this thought and analysis, Charlotte wasn't so worried anymore. "Costa, I'll go with you to ask the sheriff," Caitlin said. "He might know something." Charlotte nodded. "Okay." Caitlin led Charlotte to the sheriff. Charlotte put his hand into his pocket and played with his phone. Ring, ring. Ring, ring, ring. Charlotte's phone rang. "Wait, let me take this." Charlotte took out his phone. He didn't walk away, but answered the call next to Caitlin. Actually, no one called him. He just played the ringtone of the call. Huh? Charlotte looked surprised when he answered the phone. You're back in Mexico? Your boyfriend cheated on you? Bastard, that bastard. I'll beat him up when I come back. Caitlin let out a sigh of relief. Okay. Fortunately, you left. The hotel we stayed in exploded. Yes, it was a terrible explosion. That's all. I'm relieved that you're okay. You don't know how worried I was. Okay, bye. Charlotte hung up the phone and put it in his pocket. Is your sister okay? Caitlin looked concerned. She wanted to make sure. Charlotte said, she was lucky. She left early. I think she called me to tell me about this. That's good. It must be God's blessing. Okay, let's go back. The sheriff and the fire department will look into it, Caitlin said. Okay, looks like I'll have to stay at your house tonight, Charlotte said with a smile. He let Caitlin take his arm and leave. Jack caught up. Let's go together. Caitlin frowned, but didn't say anything. Mr. Costa, is your sister okay? Jack asked. Charlotte said, she left early. She's fine. That's lucky, Jack said. Charlotte said, she's a kind girl. God will bless her. He paused and looked at Caitlin. My mother was a devout Catholic. She never did a bad thing. You're like my mother. I'm so happy to have met you. I think it was my mother who helped me in heaven and told me to do the right thing. Costa, that's so nice of you, Caitlin said. She hugged Charlotte's waist tightly and kissed Charlotte's lips. The two of them kissed passionately in front of Jack. If Jack wasn't here, the two of them might have done it in the cold and snowy land. Okay, do you need me to leave? Jack said with a smile. I can leave, but I have to warn you, it's too cold for that. Charlotte and Caitlin separated. Charlotte said, I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. Caitlin, God bless my sister and let me meet you. It's a favor from God. I have to do something. How about this, Caitlin? I'll give you $100,000. Help someone in need. The owner of the motel and the people who were injured or killed in the explosion. You can give them some money or help them buy things they need. Will you do this for me? Of course. You're such a good person. Caitlin smiled happily. She glanced sideways at her brother, Jack. She didn't say anything, but her eyes seemed to say, what's the point of working hard? I just need to take off my pants to get what I want. Jack smiled bitterly and didn't say anything. The three returned home. I'm so happy today. Let's have another drink, Charlotte suggested. More drinks? Caitlin wanted to hint to Charlotte that they could do something more interesting than drinking, but she thought of the word reserved and shut her mouth. Sure, we should celebrate, Jack agreed readily. I'll get the drinks. Charlotte walked to the liquor cabinet. Jack didn't say anything. But as Charlotte walked to the liquor cabinet, he pulled Caitlin to his side and whispered in her ear, we can't give away all the $100,000. We can repair the house. We can even buy a new pickup truck. Caitlin frowned. Do you have to talk to me about this now? Jack said, looks like he's really a rich idiot. You're lucky you look like his mother. Remember, make sure he can't leave you. This is your best chance to live a good life. Caitlin nodded. While the siblings were whispering to each other, Xiaolei placed a white pill into a bottle of whiskey. The white pill melted in the bottle and disappeared in the blink of an eye. It wasn't an ordinary sleeping pill. It was a special drug from 101 innings. Zhu Xianyue was gone, so he could only rely on himself for the next step. As the ace consultant of 101 innings, it was a piece of cake for him to deal with these two Americans who wanted to live a good life. Charlotte brought the whiskey over and poured 3.5 glasses. Then he raised his glass and said, for my sister, let's drink. Cheers. Caitlin and Jack raised their glasses at the same time. With a smile on his face, Charlotte drank it all. Chapter 9:29. After a few drinks, Caitlin fell into Charlotte's arms, and Jack lay on the floor. Charlotte also fainted on the sofa for about 2 minutes, and then he woke up with the help of his strong immune system. He drugged a bottle of wine, and he also drank the drug wine, so naturally, he was drugged as well. Jack was a very cautious person, and he didn't want to arouse Jack's suspicion by drinking a different wine. After waking up, Charlotte shook his head hard, driving the last bit of drowsiness out of his brain. He put Caitlin on the sofa, then shook her shoulder and tentatively said, Caitlin? Caitlin? Caitlin didn't respond at all. Charlotte then walked to Jack's side and patted Jack's face with his hand. Jack? Jack? Jack didn't respond at all. After making sure that the drug had taken effect and that the siblings wouldn't wake up, Charlotte went straight to Jack's study. After entering the study, he closed the door. There was a computer desk and a large bookcase in the study. There were many professional books on the bookcase, and a considerable part of them were related to airplanes, electrical engineering, and programming. It wasn't hard to see that Jack was a very hard-working person. He wanted to change his life with his own hands. His situation was very common in China, and the only way for ordinary children to change their fate was to study. But in the end, there were very few people who could change their fate. But even so, there was still a lot of competition on this road. Charlotte activated the X-ray mode of his left eye, and his vision quickly swept over Jack's study. The results came out quickly. There was no hidden space, and there was no safe or anything like that. Charlotte's vision quickly moved to an Apple computer on the computer desk, and he had a preliminary judgment in his mind, which was that young people like Jack didn't like to print secrets on paper and then lock them in a safe. Jack's secret should be in his computer. Charlotte sat in front of the computer desk and woke up Jack's computer. Jack's computer requires a password. However, this was not difficult for him, who had mastered hacking skills. It only took him 2 minutes to crack Jack's login password, and then he entered his computer. As soon as he entered Jack's computer, Charlotte was surprised to find that Jack's computer was a treasure trove. Jack was a technician on Lockheed Martin Corporation's drone production line. Although he was just an ordinary technician and his position was only slightly higher than the average worker, he was a diligent young man who wanted to change his life through his slaves. His computer was loaded with a lot of things related to drones. There were blueprints that he had designed, and they were very detailed and complete. There were even precise standards for the size, progress, and material requirements of the parts. There were also some of his unique understanding and views on drone technology, as well as some predictions on the development trend of drones in the future. There were also some work records, including the production of the R-170 Sentinel and the production of the Global Hawk. There were even some of his own suggestions for improvement in these work records. Finally, there were some maintenance records. These records were equivalent to a summary of experience, which was very valuable. This was really a treasure trove, especially for Charlotte, who was preparing to research and produce drones. However, he was also a little disappointed. That was, Jack's computer did not have more advanced content, which was the content of Lockheed Martin Corporation's fighter and missile technology. Although this was a pity, it was also very normal. After all, Jack was only a very ordinary technician at Lockheed Martin Corporation. His level was too low. He worked on the drone production line, and he had no opportunity to come into contact with things in the field of fighter and missile technology. Finally, Charlotte found an encrypted file in the computer. Charlotte quickly cracked the encrypted file and saw the content. This encrypted file turned out to be the document for the assembly of the Predator B, which did not leave any marks. The person who signed the document was also the Thompson that Jack mentioned. The document mentioned that GE provided all the necessary original materials, but the missile was a powerful precision-guided missile specially made by Lockheed Martin Corporation. In this document, the Predator B that was about to be born at Lockheed Martin Corporation would carry 2 such precision-guided missiles, one named Skunk's Gift and the other named Key of Hell. According to the parameters of the 2 missiles in the document, their power was enough to raise the entire Rema group to the ground. The weight of these 2 missiles was several times greater than the air-to-ground missiles that ordinary drones could launch. This also required the special Predator B to increase the weight of the missiles, and the launcher had to be modified accordingly. In fact, when Jack and Caitlin talked about the drone program, Charlotte had actually been wondering about a problem. The Predator series of drones was not produced by Lockheed Martin Corporation. It was a product of GE. Lockheed Martin Corporation's drones were more high-end, such as the R-170 Sentinel and the Global Hawk. These are the most advanced drones in the U.S. military. However, the R-170 Sentinel had a wingspan of 20 meters and a takeoff weight of an astonishing 4 tons. It was undoubtedly a behemoth, and it was impossible to sneak into China's territory, avoid China's air defense network, and then carry out a sneak attack on Rema Group. Now it seemed that the four arms giants had really formed an alliance to share resources. In order to kill him, the four arms giants would give him whatever they wanted. Skunk's gift? Key of hell? Charlotte sneered. Build it. When you build it, let's see if you can blow up my Rema Group and kill me. Charlotte read the document again and then exited the encrypted file. He read it twice, and all the content was stored in his brain without missing a single word. Not only this encrypted file, but the content that Jack left on this computer was also stored in his brain in the same way. For him, he didn't need to use the USB to copy it, nor did he need to print it. After storing all the treasures in the computer, Charlotte opened a photo folder in the computer. He wanted to see what kind of people Jack interacted with. There were many photos in the photo folder, including Jack and Caitlin's childhood photos, Jack's graduation photos, and some photos of his coworkers. Jack didn't have a girlfriend, and Charlotte didn't find any intimate photos with any woman. Finally, Charlotte's gaze fell on a photo. In the photo, Jack and a white man were standing together. Behind them was an F-35 fighter jet that had yet to be painted. Jack was wearing a work uniform, and Thon was wearing a suit. Inside the open lapel was a white shirt, and in the middle of the shirt and suit, a corner of a card was revealed. Isn't that Thon? Charlotte recognized the white man at a glance. He was the middle-aged white man who showed goodwill and befriended him in front of the Flaming Skull Bar. At that time, Thon seemed to be loyal and wanted to solve Caitlin's problem with him. He also said that the sheriff and he were good friends. Charlotte clearly remembered that Thon said that he worked at Lockheed Martin Corporation, and from his tone, his salary wasn't high. But in this photo, Jack was wearing a dirty work uniform, and Thon was wearing a well-ironed suit. The photo of the two was somewhat discordant. Charlotte suddenly remembered something, and his gaze moved to the position between Thon's shirt and suit. The card that was revealed was dark blue, and there was a little white pattern on it, but it couldn't be seen clearly in the photo. Charlotte's left eye moved slightly, and the white pattern on the card was magnified and became clear. It was a pattern of a bald eagle. Charlotte was taken aback. He's actually from the CIB. No wonder Jack is so cautious and has a certain level of counter-espionage ability. So, it's related to this person. Jack was probably his informant in this small town. Jack might be able to earn some extra money from him. Thinking of this, Charlotte suddenly laughed. So what if he's from the CIB? So what if he's a CIB informant? This place is regarded as a forbidden place for spies in the world, but he still got what he wanted. Charlotte erased all traces on the computer, then exited and turned off the computer. When he left the study, he even used his sleeves to carefully wipe the stool he sat on and the mouse twice. Back in the living room, Jack and Caitlin were still unconscious, and there were no signs of them waking up. Charlotte took the rest of the drugged whiskey to the kitchen, poured it into the sink, and then rinsed it with water. The wine bottles and glasses were also cleaned by him. He returned to the liquor cabinet, and from the other bottle of whiskey, he filled the bottle that he had cleaned. Then, he put the bottle of whiskey on the coffee table. After dealing with the whiskey, he carried Caitlin from the living room and into her room. Then, he took off her clothes and then his own. He carried his and Caitlin's clothes out, throwing 2 in the living room, 2 in the hallway, and finally the rest of the underwear in Caitlin's bedroom. After dealing with the clothes, he went to the kitchen, took a carton of milk from the fridge, and returned to Caitlin's room. He poured some milk on a certain part of Caitlin's body, then sprinkled some on the bed sheets, and even a few drops on the floor, trying to create an angry scene. After everything was done, he crawled into bed, opened his eyes, and waited for Jack and Caitlin to wake up. Time ticked by in silence. Lying in bed, Charlotte couldn't control his brain to think about something. Zhu Xianwei is missing. Should I contact the Zodiac Squad and ask them to come? No, I can't do that. It's too dangerous. He didn't have a clear answer to this question, but his brain moved to the blueprints that Jack drew. R-170 Sentinel, Global Hawk, and Predator. I've seen naked photos of the 3 most advanced UAVs in America. And from what angle should I study the UAVs belonging to Rema Group? This wasn't just a question. It required careful consideration. Chapter 9:30. About 2 hours later, Jack woke up. He opened his eyes, and there were double images in front of him. He shook his head slightly to clear his vision, but he didn't see Charlotte or Caitlin. He thought for a moment and suddenly got up from the floor. He opened the bottle and sniffed, but didn't find anything special. He picked up the glass and sniffed again, but didn't find anything strange. Then his gaze moved to the side of the sofa. He saw Charlotte's jacket and Caitlin's pants. Jack picked up Charlotte's jacket and went through Charlotte's pockets. He found a wallet. It was bulging and stuffed with money. Dollars, euros, and pesos. It was a shocking amount. Apart from the money, there was also a Mexican driver's license with Costa's name on it and a photo of Charlotte in disguise. Then he found a passport. He checked it carefully. There was nothing wrong with it. He put these things in Charlotte's pocket and went into the hallway. In the hallway, he saw Caitlin's bra and a pair of black underwear. But it was a man's underwear. He frowned and couldn't help but curse. A pair of bitches. They only know how to have fun. No one cares if I'm drunk on the floor. They left him alone on the floor in the cold. It was one thing for Costa to ignore him, but Caitlin was his sister. Was she his sister? Jack reached for the doorknob, but just as he was about to open the door, he gave up. He turned and walked to his study. He went into the study and carefully observed everything. The study was quiet. There was no sign that it had been flipped through. Jack walked to the computer desk, opened a drawer, and took out a highlighter from the drawer. He turned on the highlighter and aimed it at the mouse. He was a very careful person. Every time he used the computer, he would wipe the mouse and keyboard clean. When he used the computer again, he would use the highlighter to check if anyone had touched his computer. If someone touched it, the highlighter would reveal that person's fingerprints. Caitlin had once touched his computer, and he had scolded her when he found out. It had never happened again. After Jack checked the mouse, he checked the keyboard. The mouse and keyboard were very clean. There was no trace of anyone touching it. But even if there was no trace, Jack still woke up the computer, entered the password, and logged in to check if there were any traces of browsing or copying. The results came out very quickly. There were no traces of browsing or copying on his computer. Looks like he's really fine. I was too careful. Jack thought to himself. He left the study and went to Caitlin's room again. This time he opened the door and walked in. As soon as he entered the door, Jack frowned. His sister and the Mexican boy were lying naked on the bed. The heater was turned on, and they didn't seem to care about the electricity consumption. But that was not what embarrassed him. What embarrassed him was that his sister's body was covered in that white, sticky liquid. Her chest, face, and legs were all over her body. What was more exaggerated was that the disgusting liquid was even on the floor. F***CK. Jack cursed in his heart. Is this guy a stud horse? Or was some other animal? Just as Jack was cursing, Charlotte suddenly turned over. One of his legs was on Caitlin's body, and the other hand was on Caitlin's neck. Caitlin hadn't woken up when Charlotte's leg was on her body. But when Charlotte's hand was on her neck, her breathing was affected. She opened her eyes and woke up. She saw Jack, and the next second she screamed, "Ah, Jack, what are you doing? Get out. Get out. I just came in to get you some clothes." Jack shrugged. He threw Charlotte and Caitlin's clothes on the bed and left. Xiaolei, on the other hand, was still sleeping soundly. He did not wake up even when Caitlin screamed at Jack. Well, he had sprayed 1/3 of a carton of milk. Even a bull would collapse from exhaustion. Costa? Costa? Wake up. I want to talk to you. Caitlin shook Charlotte's shoulder, trying to wake Charlotte up. Charlotte continued to pretend to be asleep. He mumbled something in Spanish. Costa, what are you saying? Caitlin obviously didn't understand Spanish. Charlotte stopped talking and started snoring. Caitlin looked at her body, especially her stomach and whatever it was, and then she saw that it was a lot of stuff. She was so shocked that she couldn't close her mouth. Costa, you're so strong. She actually wanted to say pervert. Caitlin's gaze moved to Charlotte again. She couldn't help but feel excited. She didn't feel anything during the whole process. It was like eating a delicious meal and then pouring it into her stomach through a plastic tube. It was tasteless. Caitlin smirked. She reached out and pushed Xiaolei. You made me so dirty, and now all you care about is sleeping. Wake up. Let's talk. Charlotte didn't react at all. Fine. You took advantage of me when I was drunk. I won't go easy on you. Caitlin moved closer to him. 10 minutes later, she gave up. Depressed, she pulled the covers over her head and went to sleep. Under the blanket, Xia Lei's lips curled into a sneer. As long as he wanted to control himself, no woman in the world could do anything to him. Xiao, Fan, Frosty Rui, if you knew what I just went through, you would be proud of my perseverance. You would probably give me a good husband award, right? 4 faces appeared in Charlotte's mind. Liang Shuyao, Fan, Long Bing, and Jiang Rui. That was what he thought. But if Liang Xiao, Fan, Long Bing, and Jiang Rui saw what Caitlin did to Charlotte and her perseverance and hard work, they wouldn't just give Charlotte a good husband award. They would tear Caitlin's mouth and even cut off her tongue with scissors. Caitlin had fallen asleep too. Xia Lei's gaze shifted to the wall beside the door. His left eye twitched slightly, and his X-ray vision immediately penetrated through the wooden wall. Then, he continued to move forward, penetrated through the wall again, and entered Jack's study. Jack was talking to someone in the study. Charlotte's gaze locked on Jack's lips. Yes, I know what happened at the hotel, but I heard it was an accident. It was an explosion caused by a natural gas leak. That Mexican? Are you talking about Costa? Yes, he's sleeping with my sister in my house. Oh my God, I'm ashamed of my sister. She only knew that Mexican guy for less than a day, but they're already sleeping together. That Mexican guy is rich. That's why he gave me $10,000 so casually, saying it was for my sister's rent and utilities. He also said he would give my sister $100,000 to spend however she wants. If I were a woman, I wouldn't be able to resist such an attack. Don't worry, I've checked very clearly. He's not a problem. He's just a rich playboy. Because my sister looks like his mother, he has a good impression of her and wants to hit on her. Okay, I'll be careful. Good night, Mr. Thun. Jack hung up the phone. Mr. Tun? That was the last word Jack said. When Charlotte read his lips, the face of the middle-aged white man suddenly appeared in his mind. And the photo he saw on Jack's computer. He really is from the CIB. This town is indeed a place closely monitored by the CIB. Fortunately, I pretended to be a Mexican. If I pretended to be an Asian, I'm afraid I would have been targeted long ago. Maybe they would have already planned to catch me and interrogate me. Charlotte secretly said in his heart, I can't stay in this place for long. I don't know when Jack can finish the special drone. If I leave like this, my plan will fall short of success. If only Zhu Xianyue was here. She could turn Jack into a puppet that I could control, and he would do whatever I want him to do. The best plan was, of course, for Zhu Xianyue to join in and turn Jack into a puppet, and then tamper with the drone sent to the FA organization. As long as the FA organization shipped the drone back to Mexico, he could command Jack to control the drone to blow up the FA organization's nest. This was a perfect plan to kill with a borrowed knife with almost no cost. But at this critical moment, Zhu Xianyue disappeared. Plans can't keep up with changes. This was an old saying, but Charlotte only now understood the meaning of it. This taste was full of helplessness and bitterness. Footsteps came from the hallway. Charlotte's left eye once again penetrated the wall and saw Jack. Jack came to the door of Caitlin's room with a book. He put his face against the door and eavesdropped for a while, then left and returned to his room. Pervert, you even want to eavesdrop on your sister's sex. Charlotte cursed in his heart, then continued to see through Jack. Jack read for a while and then fell asleep. Sally also closed his eyes. He also needed to rest for a while. The next morning, Charlotte got up before Caitlin woke up. He had to guard against a sudden impulse from her to do a set of morning calisthenics with him. Sure enough, as soon as he got dressed, Caitlin woke up. Costa, why are you up so early? Caitlin looked at Charlotte with longing in her eyes. Charlotte said, Baby, I'm going to make breakfast for you, but I want to eat you. Caitlin's voice was lazy and charming. Charlotte smiled. Baby, didn't you have enough last night? I'm almost drained by you. You have to give me some time to recover. Okay then, kiss me. Caitlin climbed out of the bed. After a sweet kiss, Charlotte left Caitlin's room. Jack had already gotten up. He had already made breakfast. When Charlotte went out, he was already dressed and ready to go out with a briefcase. He said to Charlotte, "Costa, I'm going to work. Breakfast is ready. You and Caitlin can have it." "That busy," Charlotte said. "I want to invite you and Caitlin to Washington. I'm going to buy her a car." "Well, last night I heard from her that you wanted a pickup truck. I want to give you the latest Ford F550 pickup truck. When are you free?" "Huh?" Jack was stunned for a moment before he recovered. "You want to give me an F550? That's $300,000. Charlotte said casually. "Is $300,000 a lot? I won $5 million in one game in Las Vegas. The dealer who dealt me the cards, I gave her a tip of 10,000 US dollars. I will be free tomorrow." Jack smiled. "Tomorrow? Tomorrow?" Charlotte smiled. "No problem." Chapter 9:31. Jack said that he was free tomorrow, which gave Charlotte a hint. The Predator B that was used to kill him would be assembled today, or maybe it had already been assembled and was just waiting for the final test. So, the next question to figure out was when and where would the FA organization receive it? The FA organization obviously won't enter Lockheed Martin Corporation directly. The U.S. government won't leave any traces of this incident, and Lockheed Martin Corporation doesn't want to be the target of retaliation and sanctions. It will definitely send the Predator B to another place to be handed over to the FA organization. I have to enter Lockheed Martin Corporation to get this information, and I also have to enter Lockheed Martin Corporation's drones and fighter jets, as well as their production lines. The information I got from Jack's computer is not enough. I'm already here. It would be a waste if I don't enter Lockheed Martin Corporation's headquarters. When Jack went out, Charlotte had quickly made a decision in his mind. Entering Lockheed Martin Corporation with Costa's identity was obviously out of the question. But who could he enter as? A Dodge Ram stopped by the roadside. Xiaolei, who was standing at the door, collected his thoughts. He shifted his gaze over and saw Thon sitting in the driver's seat. Charlotte was slightly nervous. What's this guy doing here so early? He took a step from the door and stood behind the wooden wall. His left eye also penetrated the wall and peeped at the situation on the roadside. "Mr. Thon, why are you here so early?" "Just give me a call if you need anything," Jack said, glancing back at the door behind him as he spoke. He didn't see Charlotte. That Mexican kid must have gone back to bed to make out with Caitlin, right? Animal, Thon thought in his heart. Thon got out of the driver's seat and glanced at the door behind Jack. Then he lowered his voice and said, "Is that Mexican in your house? Are you talking about Costa?" "Yes, he's in my house." Jack smiled bitterly. "I already told you last night that he has already slept with my sister. He's probably having sex with his sister right now." Tuan was silent. Jack said, "Don't worry, Mr. Thun. That Mexican kid is fine. I checked my computer the way you taught me. He didn't touch my computer at all. If he is a spy, he will definitely touch my computer. Most importantly, he is a Mexican. If you say that he is a member of a drug gang, I can still believe it, but to say that he is a spy, I don't think so. If he wasn't Mexican, I would have invited him to tea." Thon said, "But it's better to be careful. Your work is very important, and you can't make any mistakes." "I will, don't you worry, Mr. Thorne," said Jack. Thun patted Jack's shoulder. "You're very hardworking. I'll write a letter of recommendation for you after this job and put in a good word for you in front of Mr. Williams. By then, he'll agree to let you become an official member of the CIA and be responsible for the intelligence work in Lockheed Martin Corporation. You'll have a double identity and 2 salaries." Behind the wall, Charlotte was surprised. He thought that Thun was just a nobody in the CIA. He didn't expect that Thun could actually speak in front of Williams. Who is Williams? That's the head of the CIA. Based on the conversation between Thun and Jack, his definition of Thun's identity had changed. This Thun was at least in charge of a certain area. His identity should be similar to Liang Xiao's identity in the CIA. On the roadside, Jack couldn't help but smile. Joining the CIA, with the identity of the CIA, he would be promoted rapidly in Lockheed Martin Corporation because the CIA needed him to enter the top management of Lockheed Martin Corporation. "Okay, you can go." Call me after the test, said Thun. Jack said, Okay, then I'll go to the company. Thun walked to Jack's house. Charlotte took a few steps back, avoiding Thun's sight, and then walked quickly to Caitlin's room. In this process, he had already obtained a very important piece of information. Thun was someone in contact with the FA organization. When he entered Caitlin's room, Caitlin was still lying on the bed like a lazy pig. When Charlotte came in, she still had her eyes closed and didn't want to wake up. But she knew that Charlotte had come in. She muttered, Honey, let me sleep a little longer. Charlotte didn't say anything. He took off his clothes and then lifted the quilt. Caitlin opened her eyes and was shocked to see Charlotte's ferocious look. Honey, you're too charming. I can't stand it. Charlotte anxiously pounced on her. Didn't you say to? Oh. Before she could finish her sentence, her mouth was already blocked by Charlotte. The two of them rolled around on the bed sheet, full of passion. The door was not closed. From the angle of the door, the two of them looked like two intertwined vines. There was you and me in you. Thun appeared at the door. He froze for a second and then turned around. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you. Caitlin screamed. On the bed, Charlotte hurriedly climbed up from Caitlin's body and jumped off the bed. As he put on his clothes, he said, Mr. Thun, why are you here? Thun said, Jack and I are good friends. He invited me for breakfast. Siale secretly said in his heart, You want to test me personally, right? Breakfast my ass. Caitlin covered her body with a quilt, but a large part of her white skin was exposed. She said with dissatisfaction, Mr. Thun, why didn't you knock? Thun shrugged. Caitlin, you didn't even close the door. Caitlin rolled her eyes at Thun. Mr. Thun, do you want to watch me get dressed? Sorry. Thun left the door. Charlotte leaned over and kissed Caitlin. This guy's so annoying. He purposely raised his voice so that Thun could hear him. Caitlin said affectionately, Darling, let's continue after he leaves, okay? Of course, baby. You're so charming. Charlotte kissed her again. There was a clicking sound in the room, as well as the distinctive panting of a woman. Thun frowned as he listened. Charlotte walked out the door. Mr. Thun, thank you for your help last time. Let's go eat first. Caitlin said she wants to take a shower. You know, women do that kind of thing. They're, Thun couldn't listen to it anymore and interrupted Charlotte. Then let's eat first. The two men sat at the dining table and ate breakfast. Jack's breakfast was simple, fried eggs, bread, and a sausage. But the two men's minds were clearly not on breakfast. Mr. Costa, is your sister okay? Thun said tentatively, I heard from the sheriff that more than 10 people were killed in the explosion last night. The bodies were all burnt and difficult to identify. Charlotte said, My sister has returned to Mexico. God bless, she's fine. Mr. Costa, did you really, Anne? Thun lowered his voice. Do you really know Ojeda? Charlotte frowned. Mr. Thun, don't you think you're asking too many questions? Are you here for breakfast or to ask me questions? Are you from the DEA? No, Mr. Costa. Please don't misunderstand. I'm just curious. Last night, you only said a name and you scared off the biker gang. I'm impressed. Charlotte said, Everyone in Mexico knows about Ojeda. Her name can make children stop crying. I just use her name to scare those idiots. But as you can see, I still paid $10,000. You can't do anything without money. Do you understand what I mean? I understand. Let's have breakfast, hee. Thun laughed. In the following time, Thun asked Charlotte a few more questions. Charlotte dealt with each of the questions as they came. He had already made all the preparations to disguise his identity, so he didn't panic. He had fought with the CIA until today. His rich experience and legendary experiences were enough to write a book called How to Deal with the CIA. When the two men finished breakfast, Caitlin still hadn't finished showering. She wanted to wash herself white and fragrant, then wait for her Costa to eat her pig. As for Thun, he could go to hell. I have to go, Mr. Costa. Goodbye. Thun seemed to have made up his mind as he got up to leave after breakfast. Well, have a safe trip, Mr. Thun, Charlotte said. Thun left Caitlin's house and walked to the Dodge Ram on the side of the road. He recalled all the details of his meeting with Xia lay in his mind. It was as if he was solving a math problem, meticulous and meticulous. but he didn't find anything suspicious. Jack's judgment was right. This guy is just a rich playboy. Mexican, humph, only knows how to play accordion and straw hats. And women, Thun's lips curled into a contemptuous smile. Most white people were more or less racist, and he was no exception. When Thun got in the driver's seat to drive, he saw Charlotte walk out of Caitlin's house with a bag of flour. Thun looked at Charlotte in surprise. "Mr. Costa, what are you doing with a bag of flour?" Charlotte walked to the Dodge Ram and rudely threw the bag of flour into the trunk of the Dodge Ram. He said, "Take it home and make your own breakfast. I don't want to see you tomorrow morning." Thun was speechless. Charlotte gave Thun the middle finger and turned to enter Caitlin's house. "Damn asshole!" Thun cursed and drove away. When the Dodge Ram disappeared from sight, Charlotte walked out of Caitlin's house. He came to the side of the road and looked at the flour that was blown down by the wind. His lips curled into a sneer. To deal with a CIA elite like Thun, placing a tracker on him or on his car was a stupid choice. But putting flour could solve this problem. If one bag of flour wasn't enough, then 2 bags. But 1 bag was enough. Chapter 932. A Yamaha 600 cubic centimeters motorcycle left the free town of Mary and headed south. The rider on the motorcycle wore a black leather jacket and a helmet. His body was full of shiny ornaments, skulls, rivets, crosses, and so on. He looked like an American version of a punk. The rider would stop every once in a while and carefully observe the road and the roadside, as if he was looking for something. This rider was Charlotte. The Yamaha 600 cubic centimeters motorcycle and the rider's leather jacket were bought from a member of a biker gang for $10,000. Caitlin had wanted to follow him, but he refused. He gave her $100,000 to buy whatever he wanted. He was a very generous person. Although he used people, he wouldn't use them for free. He would give them benefits. He had spent a lot of money on Caitlin, but for the things he had gotten from Jack's computer, if he had gone through the proper channels, even if he offered $100 million, the U.S. government and Lockheed Martin wouldn't even let him look at them. So, the money he spent to pick up girls for this operation was well worth it. Caitlin took the $100,000 and became obedient. She was no longer a follower. Charlotte told her that he was going to meet a business friend, but in fact, he was going to follow Thon. He had a hunch that Thon was going to meet someone from the FA organization, and this was also a turning point in his trip to the United States. There was no tracker, no satellite or drone monitoring, but the bag of flour he put in the Dodge Ram that Thon was driving played a key role. There was a small hole in the bag of flour. When the car was driving at high speed, the bag of flour in the compartment would be blown open by the wind, and the flour would be scattered on the road. However, not everyone could see this degree of sprinkling. Ordinary people would probably have to wear a magnifying glass to see it, but Charlotte only needed to use his left eye's microvision ability, and he could follow it all the way. A road led south. That was the direction to Mexico. The headquarters of Lockheed Martin Corporation and the free town of Mary had long been left behind and could no longer be seen. The road and the flour on the sides of the road were still extending all the way to the south. Occasionally, there would be a village or a small town along the way, but they were all very small and not lively at all. After riding for about 100 kilometers, a lumberyard appeared in Charlotte's field of vision. The flour trail extended all the way to the lumberyard and did not diverge like the other crossroads. Clearly, Thun had entered the lumberyard. When he was about a kilometer away from the lumberyard, Charlotte did not dare to go any closer. He was worried that the surveillance cameras would capture him. He got out of the car and pushed the Yamaha 600 cubic centimeters into the woods on the side of the road, then covered it with weeds and branches. After hiding the motorcycle, he set out from the forest towards the lumberyard. There was in fact a path in the forest, but he avoided it and went where there was no path. About half an hour later, Charlotte approached the lumberyard. The place was not surrounded by walls, but it was surrounded by anti-theft nets. There were also surveillance cameras installed on the pillars made of steel pipes. There were surveillance cameras at regular intervals, and it looked very tight without any blind spots. A large amount of wood was piled on an empty space in the lumberyard, mainly oak and longan. These were all materials for flooring, and a considerable portion of them would be shipped to China. On some of the ropes, there were some China flooring brands. The wood was ordered by Chinese manufacturers. Charlotte did not go near the anti-theft nets. He activated the telescopic ability of his left eye and carefully searched the lumberyard. A few minutes later, he spotted the Dodge Ram that Thun was driving in a place to the north. Thun was not in the truck, and the bag of flour was also thrown on the ground of the lumberyard. The corner of Charlotte's mouth curled into a sneer. It was obviously too late for Thun to throw it away at this time. Not far from the Dodge, there was a group of buildings, all wooden structures. There were wooden buildings and bungalows, as well as buildings that looked like warehouses and production workshops. Xiaolei shifted his gaze to the area. He saw some people, but none of them were workers from the lumberyard. They were all armed men. There were whites, blacks, and Mexicans. Those people looked very fierce, and they had a very obvious bandit aura, or even murderous aura. They were obviously not soldiers or agents of the U.S. government. Charlotte thought to himself, these people are probably from the FA organization. After the Russian base was destroyed, the FA organization seems to have added some armed men from Mexico. The FA organization must have sent so many people to the U.S. to receive the drone. This operation is related to whether the FA organization can clear its name and whether it can ride on this luxurious ship. The FA organization must be very concerned about the success or failure. So, they will definitely send a big shot, right? This person's position in the FA organization should be higher than Yamos's, right? He didn't imagine that the leader of the FA organization would appear here, but it was very likely that the second or third in command would appear here. Unfortunately, after a careful search, Charlotte didn't find any suspicious people except the ordinary armed men of the FA organization. He also didn't find Tun. Not here. Where will Tun and the important people of the FA organization meet and talk? It seems that I have to go in. Charlotte made up his mind, and then walked along the edge of the anti-theft net into the depths of the lumberyard. He didn't believe that this lumberyard would surround the entire forest with anti-theft nets and install surveillance monitors. Sure enough, after walking forward for about 500 meters, the anti-theft net made a turn and extended horizontally. After walking for a while, Charlotte saw a simple gate about 200 meters away, and there was a road leading to the forest. There were some logs piled up on the roadside, as well as tree-cutting machinery and trucks transporting the logs. At the back door stood an armed man with a cigarette in his hand. As he smoked, he spoke into the walkie-talkie. Damn, it's really heavily guarded. Even the back door is guarded. Charlotte frowned. It was actually very easy for him to kill the FA organization sentry at the back door. He could just sneak over and finish the problem with a knife. But once he killed someone, the FA organization would notice that someone had attacked here. Then his subsequent actions would be very dangerous. More importantly, in his plan, he couldn't alert the FA organization, so he couldn't kill anyone. It was very difficult not to kill anyone. After careful observation, Charlotte's eyes moved to the side of the back door. His eyes soon fell on a place. It was a drainage ditch. The terrain of the lumberyard was gradually rising, and the lumberyard below definitely needed to solve the problem of drainage during the rainy season. It wasn't the rainy season, which meant that the drainage ditch was dry. An idea came to Charlotte's mind, and he went around the forest. A few minutes later, he came to the upstream of the drainage ditch. The drainage ditch in front of him was 2 feet deep and 2 feet wide, enough for him to crawl without being discovered by the people on the ground. He jumped into the drainage ditch and carefully crawled in the direction of the lumberyard. The FA organization definitely wasn't the owner of this lumberyard. This place was probably temporarily requisitioned by Ton to hand over the Predator B to the FA organization. This lumberyard was close to the Lockheed Martin Corporation, and its location was very remote and very suitable. However, whether it was the FA or Ton, they wouldn't expect him to be able to track them all the way here. So who would care about a drain? This drainage ditch was the only way to enter the lumberyard. It was impossible for the FA organization to completely control a place that didn't belong to them, so this passage was also a safe one. Charlotte quickly crawled under the anti-theft net. The drainage ditch behind him had no cover and was open, but the drainage ditch behind the anti-theft net was covered. It was an underground river. It was better this way. He could climb to the position he wanted from the underground drainage ditch and then proceed to the next step. It was dark in the underground drain, but it was not absolute darkness. Some of the drains were not covered tightly, and some light shone through. With the weak light and his ability to adapt to the dark environment, Charlotte's vision in the underground drainage ditch was not limited. He could see very far away, and he could even use the X-ray ability of his left eye to see the situation on the ground. Although he could see very far away, Charlotte still crawled very slowly and carefully. It wasn't until an hour later that he approached the building complex. Lying in the underground drainage ditch, he awakened the X-ray ability of his left eye. His vision penetrated the cement cover on the ground and a little bit of the ground cover to see the situation on the ground. Above him, four armed men from the FA organization were walking toward a wooden building. He almost didn't need to use lip reading to hear the conversation of the four armed men. I didn't expect that we would work with the Americans one day. What's there to think about? Weren't the organizations active in the Middle East all supported by the United States? The United States has the final say in this world. Whoever it says is legal is legal. We work for it and kill that Chinaman. It will be legal. When is that plane coming? Damn it. I don't want to stay in this damn place for another minute. When I'm done, I want to go to Washington. I've been wanted by the CIB for so many years. I want to go to the White House, take a selfie, and post it on Facebook. Do you want to die? Mr. Yin will kill you. Mr. Yin will do it himself. Because of the distance, Charlotte couldn't hear the rest of the conversation. The four armed men also walked toward the wooden building with their backs to him. His X-ray vision couldn't lock onto their lips, and he couldn't use lip reading to read their conversation. However, this conversation that he overheard was also a great harvest. First, he confirmed that this was the place where the drone was handed over. Another gain was Mr. Yin. Mr. Yin? Charlotte thought to himself, is he Chinese? Chapter 9:33. The underground drainage canal passed by the side of the wooden building and continued to extend forward. The further he went, the lower the terrain and the deeper it was from the ground. When he climbed to a position parallel to the wooden building, Charlotte could no longer use his X-ray vision to see the situation on the ground. There was no light in front of him, and it was pitch black. It was hard for people to avoid fear in such an environment, because they couldn't help but think about what would happen if the water from the drainage canal came in. What would happen if the ground collapsed? Charlotte couldn't avoid these scary imaginations, but it took him a long time to adjust. He crawled forward for a distance and stopped when he was estimated to be in the middle of the wooden building. He took out a light stick from his backpack and twisted it gently. A weak ray of light immediately dispersed the darkness. With the light, his vision moved forward like the wind, and he could see everything clearly. A sewage culvert that connected from the direction of the wooden building to the underground drainage canal came into his sight. His heart moved, and he followed it. The sewage pipe was dry, and there was no sewage. This was also the reason why he didn't smell the stench earlier. The light of the light stick extended forward, and Charlotte saw the end of the sewage pipe at a glance. There was a manhole there, and there was a simple ladder made of steel on the concrete wall under the manhole. However, the manhole cover was closed because there was no light shining down. Charlotte climbed to the bottom of the manhole and finally stood up. The height of the manhole cover was about 2-3 meters, and the manhole cover was made of cement. Charlotte awakened the ability of his left eye, and then he saw through the manhole cover. He saw the sky and the eaves of a wooden building. The manhole cover was surrounded by grass, and there was no one around. He carefully grabbed the ladder, made of steel, and climbed up, and then used his back to gently push the manhole cover up a little. A gap appeared, and he moved closer to the gap. His vision passed through a clump of withered grass, and he saw a wall of the wooden building and a window. Although the window was closed and the curtains were drawn, he finally found his target, Thon, at such a close distance. Not only Tun, but there was also an Asian man. The Asian man sat opposite Thon. He was about 30 years old, bald, with a long face, earrings, and a lipstick on one of his lips. Her clothing style was also more feminine. She wore a long black gown with golden leather shoes and a colorful decorative necklace around her neck. This Asian man reminded Charlotte of Qin Xiang, but Qin Xiang was obviously 10 times more beautiful than him. Could he be the Mr. Yin that the 4 armed men mentioned earlier? Charlotte thought to himself. He pulled out the military knife and stuffed the handle into the gap between a manhole cover and the edge of the well. The saber replaced his back to support the manhole cover, maintaining a small gap. In the room, the Asian man was talking to Thon. "Mr. Thorne," the Asian man said, "you know what we need. Give it to us, and we will be your guns. I'm here to take care of 2 matters. Thon said, "The first thing is to hand over the drone to you. I believe it won't take long for the drone to arrive here. The second thing is to complete the negotiations with the FA organization." "Well, where do you want to talk from?" "I do have the pardons signed by the president and a bill that will be proposed in the U.S. Congress. This bill can make you a legal organization recognized by the U.S. and its allies. Both of them are in my hands." "Very well, give it to me," said the Asian man. Thon said, "We only have one request." "Do you mean killing Charlotte?" The Asian man said, "If that's the request, you don't have to mention it at all, and don't doubt our determination to kill Charlotte." Thon said, "No, not that." "Then what is it?" Thon said, "We want to know who the leader of the FA organization is." The Asian man was slightly stunned and then shook his head. "That's impossible." "Why?" "Think about Benayoun, think about Gaddafi, and those big shots killed by you. The leader of the FA organization doesn't want to receive your precision-guided missiles as a gift one day like them," said the Asian man. "You know, this is one of the conditions of our deal, Mr. Yin." It turned out that he was Mr. Yin. In addition to this condition, this is the bottom line of our leader. Mr. Yin said, "If you don't agree, then we will cancel the deal." Thon shrugged. "Well, I'll change it. Tell me what your backup plan is." "I can tell you this. We will hijack a plane just like the attack you suffered," said Mr. Yin. Thon smiled. "So that's how it is. I'm relieved. Your plans A and B are very special. I wonder if there's a C plan?" Mr. Yin just smiled faintly and said nothing. Under the manhole cover, Charlotte's heart was filled with anger. Although Mr. Yin didn't point out which attack, he knew it was the attack on the World Trade Center that shocked the world. The FA organization wanted to replicate that terrorist attack on him. Hijack a plane and blow up the Thunder Horse military factory? If I let you live, you will become crazier and crazier. Charlotte's eyes were terrifyingly cold. In the room, Thon opened his briefcase and handed 2 documents to Mr. Yin. Mr. Yin opened the documents for about 10 minutes, then put them down. He said, "When will the drone come?" Thon looked at the watch on his wrist. "It will probably take another 2 or 3 hours. Will it fly here? There is no runway for it to land here. We will use a car to transport it here. Do you have professionals to assemble it? Don't underestimate us. Even if you give us a nuclear bomb, we can also detonate it." "You really know how to joke," said Thon. Mr. Yin said, "I'm not joking, Mr. Thon. We have professionals. We will transport this drone to China for installation." "Are we going to transport them directly to China?" "Of course, we won't send it anywhere else," said Mr. Yin. Charlotte pulled out the knife from under the manhole cover, then climbed back to the underground drain from the sewage pipe, and then quickly climbed back to the place where he entered the drain. He went in and out of the tree farm, and no one noticed him at all. Back in the forest, Charlotte ran to the place where the motorcycle was hidden. Every second mattered to him now, and he only had one chance. Taking back the motorcycle, Charlotte sped back in the direction he came from. The dense forest roared past him, and there was no one around. All the scenes on the way here quickly flashed through his mind, like an express train running at high speed. At some point, a village appeared on the side of the road, and then it froze. 10 minutes later, Charlotte and his Yamaha 600 cubic centimeters motorcycle appeared in the village. A white couple walking by the river looked at Charlotte and his motorcycle curiously. Charlotte's outfit made him look like a bad guy, and there had never been a person like him in this place. Charlotte got out of the car and walked straight to the couple. The couple's eyes were full of vigilance, and the blond young man even stood in front of his girlfriend for fear that Charlotte would hurt her. Charlotte stopped a few steps away from them. He took off his helmet, revealing a handsome Asian face. He said with a smile, "Hello. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a bad guy." Seeing that it was an Asian, the young couple immediately relaxed. From her point of view, Asians were not threatening at all. "What do you want?" asked the blond young man. Charlotte said, "Here's the thing. I'm terminally ill, and I don't have much time left. I want to have some fun for myself." The young white woman said, "Then you've come to the wrong place. There's no fun here. This is a very remote place." Charlotte said, "What I want is not drugs, women, or alcohol. I want a very special kind of fun." "I hope you can find the kind of fun you're talking about," said the blond young man, as if hinting that Charlotte should leave. Charlotte said, "I'm very rich, and you can't earn that much money in your lifetime. You give me fun, and I'll give you money. How about that?" The young couple looked at each other, and the blond young man said, "What do you mean?" Charlotte said, "It's very simple. I'll give you $10,000, and you go to the place I specify." He didn't say the word, but he gestured with his hands. He clenched his left hand, and then inserted the index finger of his right hand into the gap between the fingers of his left hand. This was a very suggestive gesture, and any man or woman who had done that kind of thing would understand his hint. "You?" The blond young man looked surprised. "Why do you want us to do that kind of thing?" Charlotte had an awkward smile on his face. "I like to peep, and I like to peep in the wild. How about it? Are you willing to make this deal?" $10,000. $10,000 was not a huge sum of money for an ordinary American, but it was definitely a big sum of money. Few people would not be tempted. The young couple whispered a few words, and the white woman nodded. The blond young man then asked, "Is the place you're talking about far?" "Not far, about a kilometer." "I can take you there," said Charlotte. The white woman said, "We have to collect the money first." Charlotte took out his wallet, took out $5,000, and immediately put it on the ground. "This is $5,000. I'll pay you the other half when it's done." The blond young man picked up the $5,000 and said excitedly, "No problem." Charlotte said, "I have a request. When you get to that place, you wait by the side of the road. I'll give you a cell phone. After receiving my call, you take off your pants and start working, but you have to stand in the middle of the road. Even if a car comes, you can't stop until it's done." "I can't stop even if there's a car coming? What if they don't stop?" The blond young man looked a little confused and worried. Charlotte said, "Don't worry, there won't be a problem. Follow my instructions, and I'll add $10,000 after it's done. You can buy a good pickup truck with $10,000 each." "Huh, you're really a generous person." This time, before the blond young man spoke, the white woman rushed to say, "We're willing. Take us there." Charlotte made an inviting gesture. "Please get in the car." Chapter 9:34. In the afternoon, the sun peeked out from behind the clouds, and the temperature was much warmer. A wan Coke truck dragging a long container appeared on the road in the forest. Due to the length of the truck, its speed was not very fast. The driver was a young black woman. She was not bad-looking. Jack was sitting in the passenger seat. His eyes would occasionally sneak a peek at the black female agent's thighs. She was wearing a pair of elastic tights, and a mature figure could be vaguely seen between her thighs. It was sexy and seductive. However, he only dared to take a peek because he knew that this black woman was an elite CIB agent from Thon. As for him, he was only a reserve member of the CIB and had not passed the assessment. However, he believed that after this mission, he would be an official member of the CIB and would be put in an important position. "Do you want to touch it?" The black female agent glanced at Jack. Jack awkwardly averted his eyes and suddenly exclaimed, "In front." The black female agent hurriedly shifted her gaze to the front of the car window. She immediately stepped on the brakes. On the road in front of them, a young white couple was doing something shameful on the road. The man was working hard, and the woman's reaction was exaggerated. In broad daylight, the truck was already parked in front of them, but they were still doing it without any hesitation. They had no intention of stopping. Hey, the black female agent could not help but laugh. What are these Beatrice cheese doing? You know what they're doing. Jack reached out and pressed the horn, urging the couple to leave. The Wanco truck's horn was very piercing, but the white couple did not seem to hear anything and continued doing it. Their snow-white legs were particularly dazzling under the winter sun. What was even more outrageous was that the shameless white couple seemed to be working even harder. It was as if actors had an audience, and their desire to perform suddenly exploded. Just as Jekai and the black female agent were staring at the white couple, a black shadow fell from a tree branch. He avoided the truck's left and right rearview mirrors, as well as the white couple's line of sight. He just happened to fall behind the container that the truck was dragging. This black shadow was Charlotte. Charlotte jumped lightly, grabbed the edge of the container, and climbed up. The lock on the container was not the kind of disposable steel rope lock, but a very advanced password lock. If it was a disposable steel rope, then Charlotte's operation would inevitably leave traces, but this kind of password lock gave him a passageway without leaving any traces. 20 seconds later, the combination lock was unlocked without triggering the alarm. Charlotte put away the decoder, opened the container door, and went in. The container door closed again. The entire process took no more than 30 seconds, and it was fast and accurate without anyone noticing. The container contained the specially made predator bee's wings that had been disassembled, and the body was fixed on a rack. Charlotte went below the nose of the plane and opened a hatch. Inside the hatch was a data interface. After that, he took out the hacker's computer from his backpack and connected to Predator B's data interface on the road. The young white couple continued their performance. The black female agent in the driver's seat could no longer hold it in. She pulled out a pistol, leaned forward, and raised the gun at the white youth. Get out of my way. Otherwise, I'll shoot. Perhaps he was frightened, or perhaps it was due to some other reason, but the young man trembled a few times. Actually, F***CK. The black female agent was agitated, and she pulled the trigger. With a bang, a bullet hit the road, creating a spray of sparks. The white youth pulled up his pants and ran. His girlfriend ran with him, but after 2 steps, she tripped over the underwear on her ankle. The scene was like the plot of a movie directed by Tindo Ballas. The black female agent put away her gun, and she laughed sarcastically. Wouldn't it be better to do it at home? Why do you have to do it here? You're asking for a beating. Jack seemed to remember something, and he said, Wait a minute. The black female agent glanced at him. What do you want? Jack said, This is a little strange, and I'm a little worried. Don't be in a hurry to drive. I'll go take a look at the back. Okay, I'll go with you. The black female agent got out of the car with Jack. She held a pistol in her hand, and the muzzle was aimed in the direction of the back of the car. The two came to the back of the car, and there was no one there. The car was also locked, and there was no sign of abnormality. Do you want to open the lock and take a look? The black female agent asked. Jack said, There's no need for that. Only I know the password to this lock. Even the world's most powerful hacker would need at least 10 minutes to crack this lock. Is it that powerful? I think it's just a password lock, Jack said. This is a homemade product of Lockheed Martin Corporation. You should know what this means. Okay, let's go. Don't let Mr. Thun wait too long. The two returned to the car, and the truck continued to drive in the direction of the logging factory. After driving for a distance, the black female agent looked out the window. She saw the white youth who was putting on his pants, and the white female who was cleaning herself with toilet paper. The white female's knee was injured, and some blood flowed down her knee. She frowned and looked very pitiful. When they saw the truck coming, the couple was shocked again and jumped into the grass by the side of the road like rabbits. The black female agent stretched one of his hands out of the window and then gave the couple the middle finger. Bitch! The white young man crawled out of the grass when the truck was driving, and he spat on the ground. Honey, don't be angry. For the sake of the $20,000, we should be happy. The white young woman comforted her boyfriend. Let's go find that guy. He still owes us $15,000, the white young man said. The white couple returned to the road and walked to the place where Charlotte had parted ways with them. At the same time, in the container of the universal truck, the progress bar on the hacker's computer had just finished. With the completion of the data copying, all the programs and software of this predator, B, had been transferred to the hacker's computer. Just 2 or 3 minutes ago, Jack and the black female agent had almost ruined his plan. Because if Jack opened the door of the container, he would have to kill these 2 people. And once he killed Jack and the black female agent, the CIA and the FA organization would be alarmed, and they would change their plan A to assassinate him. This plan A was also very important to him, because Charlotte's fingers danced on the keyboard, and the clicking sound was particularly crisp and loud in this quiet environment. But he was not worried that such a sound would be heard by Jack and the black female agent. This container had excellent soundproofing. He entered a virus code that he had written himself, and he gave her a name, Xiaoqian. The name Xiaoqian came from a Chinese ghost story, which was a very classic ghost movie. Xiaoqian became the female lead in that ghost movie, and she was a powerful female ghost. He implanted Xiaoqian into the control system of this predator bee, and she would lurk in the control system like a female ghost. Once the FA organization tested this predator bee, he would receive the relevant data, which was equivalent to obtaining the actual combat data of the predator bee in disguise. This was very important for him, who was about to research and manufacture drones. And more importantly, once this predator bee entered the testing state and was loaded with live ammunition, he only needed to transmit a command to Xiaoqian, and this predator bee would be controlled by him, and he could blow up whoever he wanted. A few minutes later, Charlotte finished the operation. He put away the hacker's computer, then opened the door of the container and crawled out through the gap. When he got out of the car, he closed the door of the container, then grabbed the lower edge of the container and put his feet on the road. He followed the truck for a distance, and when he reached a corner, he suddenly let go of his hands, and his body slammed to the ground. The position where he lay happened to be in the driver's blind spot, and neither the black female agent nor Jack could see him. The truck turned the corner and continued to drive to the sawmill. Charlotte stood up from the road, then left the road and went into the forest. At this point, 1/3 of his plan was completed. The whole backtracking process was very troublesome and full of danger, but the harvest was unparalleled. Putting aside the purpose of dealing with the FA organization, it was useless to only calculate the harvest from the drone, which could not be measured with money. About a quarter of an hour later, Charlotte came to the place where he hid the Yamaha 600 cubic centimeters. There, he saw the white couple waiting for him. "Hey, boss, we did as you asked. Please give us the rest of the money," said the white young man. The white young woman looked at Charlotte eagerly. Her pants were already stained with the blood on her knees. For this couple, they were really using their lives to please this China kid. But thinking of the 20,000 cuts, the shock pain, and the cold wind that blew on their butts were all worth it. Charlotte took out his wallet, then handed a stack of dollars and several large denominations of euros to the young man. After giving the money, he pushed his Yamaha 600 cubic centimeters away. "What a weirdo," said the white young man. "Yeah, if he wasn't such a weirdo, would he have given us 20,000 to do that?" The white young woman blushed. At this time, Charlotte suddenly turned around and said, "Remember, I haven't seen you, and you haven't seen me, and I didn't pay you $20,000. If you leak this matter, I will come to you for my money." No, don't worry, I won't say anything," said the white young man. Who would be stupid enough to give away $20,000? Unless he was crazy. Charlotte pushed the Yamaha 600 cubic centimeters to the road. He got on, started the car, and then drove to the free Marytown. His plan had been completed, the most difficult part, and the next part would be easy. Chapter 935. Back in the free Marytown, Charlotte parked the Yamaha 600 cubic centimeters he bought from the motorcycle gang member in front of the Flaming Skull bar. He then left without even taking out the key. The motorcycle gang member who sold him the motorcycle was drinking in the Flaming Skull bar. When he was almost done drinking and left the bar, he would find that the motorcycle he sold for $10,000 was back. At that time, he would not be polite. As for why this would happen, would a motorcycle gang member who was all brawn and no brains, think about it, Charlotte returned to Caitlin's house. Caitlin was not at home. She, who had gotten $10,000, was probably shopping in a large shopping mall in Washington. She had gotten love and a beautiful and happy life. Of course, it was necessary to celebrate. For women, shopping was the best way to celebrate. Caitlin was in Washington, Jack was in a lumberyard more than 100 kilometers away, and Ton was also in that lumberyard. Now, it was time for the second part of his plan, and that was to enter the Lockheed Martin Corporation. The best and only opportunity was right in front of him. He had to seize it, because he wanted to enter the Lockheed Martin Corporation with Jack's appearance and identity. After entering Caitlin's house, Charlotte went straight to her room. He took off the human skin mask on his face in the bathroom and modified it. An hour later, Charlotte appeared in front of the Lockheed Martin Corporation headquarters building. On his face was Jack's human skin mask, which was 99% realistic. The only flaw was his eyes. He could not make his eyes into the blue eyes of a purebred white man. Although he changed the color a little with dye, a closer look would still reveal the flaw. However, he also had a solution. It was very simple, and that was to wear Jack's Ray-Ban sunglasses. The armed guard standing at the gate glanced at Charlotte and did not do anything else. Jack's mission was a secret mission. With the identity of these guards, it was impossible for them to know where Jack went. Charlotte calmly walked past the first line of defense formed by several armed guards. When he came to the gate, he inserted the ID card that he copied from Jack into the identification device. Safe passage. He put away his ID card and swaggered into Lockheed Martin Corporation. He didn't go to the headquarters building. Instead, he went to the production area. Jack's identity was originally an ordinary technician. It was normal for him to enter the production area of Lockheed Martin Corporation, and no one would suspect someone who had worked here for several years. The headquarters of the Lockheed Martin Corporation must have more advanced secrets and military technology, but Charlotte knew it was a bait. If he entered the headquarters building, the executives of Lockheed Martin Corporation would definitely suspect that something was wrong with the plan. Otherwise, why would he appear in the headquarters building when he was supposed to be in the lumberyard? He knew when to be greedy and when not to be greedy. In fact, based on the current situation, if he walked around the Lockheed Martin Corporation production area, the harvest would be more than enough for him to eat. He walked past the F-16 production line, and the situation of the entire production line entered his line of sight. Then it would be stored in his brain. Some of these things were numbers, some were pictures, and some were even three-dimensional images. He had done the same thing at Germany's Rheinmetall. But he found that if Germany's Rheinmetall was compared to the United States Lockheed Martin Corporation, the former was just a beast on the ground, while the latter was a flying dragon that dominated the sky. The difference between them was not just a little bit. Lockheed Martin Corporation occupied 40% of the global arms trade market. Its military technology was the world's first, and it was also the company that supported the United States' position as the world's hegemon. From these aspects, it was not difficult to see how terrifying it was. When he passed by the F-35 production line, Charlotte squatted down to tie his shoelaces. When he passed by the Haifa missile production line, Charlotte was in a daze for a while. Charlotte walked past one production workshop after another, and a large amount of content poured into his brain. Even with his super brain, he felt a little overwhelmed when he put so many things into his brain at once. But even if he couldn't handle it, he had to eat more. There was only one chance. Even if he couldn't completely borrow Lockheed Martin Corporation's military technology, understanding the performance and related parameters of Lockheed Martin Corporation's products was also extremely valuable information for the country. Time passed bit by bit. Charlotte, who was immersed in his own military technology, did not feel the passage of time, but its speed did not decrease. 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour. After an unknown amount of time, when Charlotte arrived next to a Raptor fighter jet, a Kingdom truck dragging a container drove in from the cargo gate. Charlotte had not yet noticed it. He stared at the Raptor fighter jet parked in the open space with full attention. He was amazed by its lines and aerodynamic layout. But just as he was about to awaken his X-ray vision ability and conduct a three-dimensional absorption, the Kingdom truck stopped not far behind him. "Jack, why are you here?" Someone's voice came from behind. The voice reached Charlotte's ears, and he instantly understood what had happened. He had stayed in Lockheed Martin Corporation for too long. Jack and Thun had returned. "What are you talking about?" "I just went out to deliver something." Jack's voice came from behind. Sorry. Maybe my eyes are playing tricks on me," someone said. Charlotte did not look back. He strode around the nose of the Raptor fighter jet and came to the side, using the body of the plane to block Jack's vision. At the same time, his left eye's vision penetrated part of the plane and saw Jack and a black female agent. A Dodge Ram also drove over and stopped next to the Universal Kingdom truck. Thun got out of the car and waved to Jack. "Jack, good job. Follow me. I'll bring you to see Mr. Thompson. You will get your reward." Jack walked towards Thun, but he looked back at the colleague who had just spoken to him and then looked around. Charlotte secretly said in his heart, "Is this guy born so cautious and cunning? If I let him join the CIA, he may become a powerful opponent and cause me big trouble." Jack's action of looking around had already made Charlotte want to kill him. Jack walked in front of Thun. "Mr. Thun, a colleague just said something strange." "What did he say?" Thun's eyes were full of suspicion and vigilance. Jack lowered his voice. "That colleague asked why I was here, and then said his eyes were playing tricks on me." Thun then frowned. "You mean, is it possible that someone who looks like me has been here?" Jack looked around again. "Or someone impersonated me." "Impersonated you? How is that possible?" "Nothing is impossible," Jack said. "Mr. Thun, I think for safety's sake, we should check the entry and exit records. If someone really impersonated me, with the security level of Lockheed Martin Corporation, he can only enter using my identification card. Once he uses it, the security system will leave a record. Then what are we waiting for? Let's check it out quickly. If someone really impersonated you, then we have to lock down the entire company." Thun said. The two walked quickly to the headquarters. Charlotte didn't stay for a second longer. He quickly ran to the freight gate. He had to leave before Thun checked the records and ordered a lockdown on Lockheed Martin Corporation. Even a second longer meant he was doomed. Plans could not keep up with changes. Even his superbrain couldn't be flawless. "Jack! Thun!" While running, Charlotte's heart was filled with murderous thoughts again. When approaching the freight gate, Charlotte slowed down and swiped his card in normal pace. Because it was a normal entry and exit, the guards at the freight gate didn't suspect anything. Out of the gate, Charlotte left the main road and walked toward the small path. Next to the small path was a dense forest. After entering the forest, he took out his backpack from a pile of dead leaves. He carried the backpack and sprinted in the pathless forest. He didn't choose this route on the spur of the moment. This route was originally his planned retreat route. He knew all the topography of this area like the back of his hand through Google Maps. His backpack was also hidden before entering Lockheed Martin Corporation. Now, every second counts. Jack and Thun would soon discover the entry and exit records he left behind. In other words, Jack and Thun would soon know where he left from. This also meant that the pursuers would soon appear. The forest path was rugged. Charlotte's upper body leaned forward. His feet moved as fast as the pistons in an engine. His speed was comparable to a cheetah in the jungle. He didn't bother to calculate his speed. If he were to race with an off-road vehicle traveling at 80 miles per hour, the off-road vehicle would be behind him, not in front of him. However, this record of the fastest running speed in history was forced out. In the blink of an eye, he left Lockheed Martin Corporation far behind. Just as he entered into a sprint, a piercing alarm came from Lockheed Martin Corporation. Charlotte didn't need to look back. In his mind, he could picture the armed guards of Lockheed Martin Corporation coming out in full force. Of course, not only the armed guards of Lockheed Martin Corporation, there were also CIB agents and the exclusive special forces guarding Lockheed Martin Corporation. A 2-meter-wide river appeared in front of him. Charlotte didn't slow down. His right foot tapped on the ground, and his body swooshed over. A clear footprint was left on the ground full of dead leaves, but he couldn't care less now. Chapter 9:36. Mr. Thon, There's a footprint here. By the river in the woods, Jack found an obvious footprint on the ground. He squatted next to the footprint. It looks very new. Good observation. Thon said approvingly. You've really worked hard and mastered the things I've taught you. But can you tell me, how did that person disguise himself as you, and why did he sneak in a Lockheed Martin corporation? Jack shook his head. I don't know. According to some surveillance footage, that person didn't do anything special. He looked like he was just strolling. He took such a big risk to sneak in a Lockheed Martin corporation. It's not as simple as just strolling. Thon said he must have some kind of conspiracy or purpose, but we found him in time, so he escaped. Mr. Thon, what kind of conspiracy and purpose does he have? Jack asked. Thon looked across the river. It's very strange. I don't know for now, but I know he can't escape. As long as we catch him, I have a way to dig out the secrets on him. By the way, who do you think he is? Jack thought about it seriously and said, I don't know, but I think there's a very strange person. Thon's lips curled into a sneer. Costa. Only Costa has the chance to copy your ID card, right? We've thought of a place. Oomph. I knew that guy has ulterior motives for hitting on my sister. As long as we catch him, I won't let him off. Jack's eyes burned with anger. An armed man from Lockheed Martin Corporation jumped into the river. The water was up to his waist, and that was only the depth of the river. The depth of the river could probably drown his entire body. Mr. Thon, we can't. The river is too deep. We have to think of another way to cross the river. The guy is really good. He can actually jump across such a wide river. He must be a frog. The armed man who was waiting in the river complained. Thon raised an assault rifle in his hand and pulled the trigger at a tree by the river. Bang, 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 all the bullets hit the trunk of the tree. Wood shavings flew everywhere. The trunk was damaged and on the verge of collapse. Without waiting for Ton to speak, Jack walked over to the tree and pushed it down with both hands. The tree fell right over the stream. Let's go, we must catch that guy. Thon took the lead and stepped onto the single-log bridge. A large group of armed men followed Toon across the river. In the sky, 4 armed helicopters whizzed past, and a Global Hawk appeared higher up in the sky. The Global Hawk was originally a reconnaissance aircraft used by the U.S. military to investigate the enemy. Lockheed Martin Corporation sent a Global Hawk to search for the intruder. In the eyes of everyone who knew about this, catching the intruder was a piece of cake. At the same time, in the dense primordial forest, Charlotte suddenly stopped and looked back at the sky. The engines of the 4 assault helicopters had yet to sound, but he had already seen them. Then he saw the Global Hawk flying toward him from a higher altitude. Damn, they actually used the Global Hawk. Don't they think it's too much? Charlotte cursed in his heart, but his reaction wasn't slow. He lay on the ground and used his hands to gather the dead leaves and branches around him and piled them on top of him. Just as he covered himself with the dead leaves and branches, the 4 assault helicopters had already approached. The loud roar of the engines came from the sky. Charlotte saw the situation in the sky from under the dead leaves and branches. He watched the 4 assault helicopters fly over the forest. His heart felt like it was held in the palm of someone's hand. As long as the other party squeezed hard, his heart would be torn apart. He was nervous. He couldn't avoid the spread of this emotion. The 4 assault helicopters flew over and separated, each flying to different areas to search. A minute later, the Global Hawk also flew over from a high altitude. Charlotte saw through the Global Hawk. The guy flying in the sky posed a greater threat to him than the 4 assault helicopters. Once it found him, the consequences would be unimaginable. The Global Hawk also flew over. It could detect targets on the ground, even if it was a pistol that had fallen to the ground. It could also detect hidden military equipment, such as tanks and cannons. However, a person buried under rotten leaves and twigs was something that it could not detect. After the Global Hawk flew over, Charlotte climbed up from under the dead leaves and branches. He walked forward, but he stopped after 2 steps. He thought to himself, in front of me is a thicker primeval forest, and there are 4 assault helicopters and a Global Hawk searching for me. No matter how fast I am, I can't outrun the helicopters and the Global Hawk. As long as I move around in that area, The Global Hawk is likely to find me. Once it finds me, the 4 assault helicopters will quickly surround me from 4 different directions. They are all equipped with cannons and even missiles to the ground. It's useless even if I hide behind a tree. Thinking of this, Charlotte turned around and walked in the direction of Lockheed Martin Corporation. The area that the 4 assault helicopters and the Global Hawk had searched would definitely not be searched carefully by the armed personnel on the ground. They would follow the guidance of the 4 assault helicopters and the Global Hawk into the depths of the forest. Therefore, it was a smart move to turn back now. If the enemy advanced, he would retreat. If the enemy retreated, he would advance. If the enemy advanced, he would go to the enemy's base. On the way here, he ran like crazy. On the way back, he slowed down and was very careful. This was because he knew that, with his speed, it would take at least some time for the Lockheed Martin Corporation's ground personnel to catch up to him. If he turned back now, he would most likely run into the enemy head-on if he continued to run at the same speed as before. And he didn't have any weapons made by Rema Group on him. He only had a military knife that he had hidden in his backpack, and that was obviously not enough. Although it was the same direction, Charlotte still deviated from his original route. He chose a new route. He would rather take a detour and walk more to avoid the Lockheed Martin Corporation's ground personnel. The deep forest was quiet. Occasionally, there would be the sound of a bird or the roar of a beast. Xiaolei listened to these voices very seriously, not daring to be the slightest bit careless. He also carefully dealt with the traces left on the ground. If he could jump over a rock, he would never step on the dead branches and leaves on the ground. If it was inevitable that he would leave traces on the ground, he would use the dead branches and leaves to cover the traces. After a while, there was suddenly a voice coming from the forest in front of him. Is that guy a bird? 4 assault helicopters and a Global Hawk, but until now, they still haven't found that guy. Could it be that he runs faster than a plane? Yeah, this is too strange. Hearing these voices, Charlotte held his breath and moved horizontally, distancing himself from the oncoming ground personnel. At the same time, he awakened the X-ray vision of his left eye and tried his best to spy on the ground personnel. This time, he actually saw Jack. Jack and Tun were together, but he didn't see Tun. Jack and Tun seemed to have separated after crossing the river. When he saw Jack, Charlotte's eyes locked on Jack's lips. Jack said to one of the armed personnel, "In this world, no one can run faster than a plane. There's only one possibility for this to happen, and that is he's hiding. Maybe he's nearby. I'm very curious about that guy. When I catch him, I'm gonna see if he has 4 legs. But even if he has 4 legs, I'll break every one of them," the armed personnel said. "Let's search separately and keep in contact with Mr. Tun," Jack said. "Okay, Jack, you really are the smartest person I've ever met. I think you're the most likely person to catch that guy," the leader of the armed personnel said. "Cabby, if I get any reward, I won't forget about you and my brothers," Jack said. The large group of armed personnel then spread out. What was originally a straight-line search team had now become a fan-shaped search team. On the other side, Charlotte frowned. This Jack, his IQ might not be ridiculously high, and he wasn't the kind of scientific geek who was very good at scientific inventions, but he was definitely a genius at being a spy or secret agent. Leaving such a person alive would be a hidden danger. Charlotte wanted to kill him, and this desire was very strong. But Jack had a large group of Lockheed Martin Corporation armed personnel around him. They were all well-trained and well-equipped retired Special Forces soldiers, and their combat skills were no lower than active U.S. Special Forces soldiers. He only had a military knife on him. How could he fight with this large group of armed personnel who were like wolves and tigers? Another problem he had to face was that once a battle broke out, there would definitely be gunshots. Once there were guns, then the search teams from other places would rush over. And, of course, there would be 4 armed helicopters. At that time, he would really become a beast trapped in a cage. The idea of killing Jack was very tempting, but Charlotte resisted. He continued to move horizontally, carefully cleaning up the traces on the ground while continuing to lock onto Jack. Just as the other armed personnel spread out in a fan-shaped search, Jack took out his cell phone and made a call. "Caitlin, where are you now?" "It's me," I'm your brother. Tell me, is Costa with you now? This is very important to me. Tell me." Charlotte couldn't hear the voice on the phone, but he knew that Caitlin would tell Jack the truth. Sure enough, Jack said, "What did you say? He's not with you? He gave you $100,000? Oof. I knew it. He approached you with ulterior motives. Listen to me. Call him immediately." "Immediately? Don't you understand? He's a spy. He doesn't love you. He's using you, you idiot. Call him immediately. Ask him to pick you up or something. Find any reason. You have to make this call." "Hello? Hello?" Caitlin seemed to have hung up the phone. F***CK. Jack raised his cell phone as if he wanted to throw it, but he didn't in the end. He wants to use his sister to catch me? But Caitlin obviously didn't want to cooperate with her ambitious brother. "Fine, you use your sister to catch me. I'll also use your sister to teach you a lesson." Charlotte's lips curled into a cold smile. The lesson he was going to teach Jack was the biggest and last one in a person's life. Xiaolei avoided the area that the search team was searching and gradually went far away. The small river appeared in front of Charlotte again, but this time he didn't jump over it. Instead, he slid into the river and rode the cold water all the way west. Chapter 9:37. 2 days later, El Paso, Texas. El Paso was a very unique city. It was only separated from Ciudad Juarez in Mexico by the Rio Grande. The Americans walking along the river in El Paso could even wave to their fellow Mexicans on the opposite side. And if the Mexican girls on the opposite side lifted their skirts, the Americans on this side could see their underwear. Charlotte was right next to the Rio Grande, but no Mexican women lifted their skirts to him. He walked slowly along the riverside path, his eyes fixed on a dock on the opposite side. There are dozens of ships docked at the dock, including cargo ships and yachts of the rich. On a cargo ship stood a dozen Mexicans. They didn't look like dock stevedores. All of them wore black suits and gave off a very serious feeling. The Mexicans didn't have any obvious symbols on them, nor did they carry weapons, but Charlotte knew that they were all armed men of the FA organization. They were waiting for their cargo, the Predator B. The Rio Grande passed between El Paso and Ciudad Juarez, and then entered the Gulf of Mexico. According to Mr. Yin, the Predator B provided by Lockheed Martin Corporation wouldn't be shipped into Mexico. The FA organization would smuggle it directly into China and then carry out the attack on Rema Group. Although Mr. Yin didn't say the route, Charlotte also had a helper who told him the route of the FA organization. Charlotte's helper was Xiaoqian, who he had implanted in the Predator B. It was with the location of Xiaoqian that he had chased all the way from Washington State. The sun was setting, and the gray mountains in the distance were dyed golden. Charlotte sat down on a rock by the river and took out his hacker's computer from his backpack. He turned on the computer, and a satellite positioning image suddenly appeared. On the map, a red that was moving toward El Paso. At its speed, it would take at most half an hour to cross the urban area of El Paso and arrive at the dock. Charlotte's eyes moved to the opposite dock. At this moment, the cargo ship suddenly started and sailed toward this dock. They must have been notified. Charlotte thought to himself, could it be that Mr. Yin transported the Predator B away just like that? Didn't he want to test it? Under normal circumstances, he should have tested it. If the Predator B reached the sea, he would have no chance to test it. Would he use an untested drone to kill me and blow up the Thunder Horse military factory? Wouldn't that be too rash? If he's a cautious person, he'll definitely take the test. Is Mr. Yin a cautious person? Charlotte didn't even need to think to get the answer to this question. From the encounter in Washington State, Mr. Yan's control over the lumberyard showed that he was a very cautious person. While Charlotte was deep in thought, the cargo ship had crossed the Rio Grande and arrived at the dock. After the freighter stabilized, the armed men of the FA organization disembarked. A few SUVs drove over from the dock. The armed men got into the cars and drove into the downtown area of El Paso. Charlotte's eyes moved to the screen of the hacker's computer. He saw that the red had stopped. The place where he stopped was not in the downtown area of El Paso, but a place near the city. He zoomed in on the map and the place where the red dot signal stopped was displayed on the screen. It was a farm with a large amount of cocoa planted. Next to the farm was a road leading to the wilderness. The road had been abandoned, and there were no vehicles on it. Charlotte's heart skipped a beat, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. I told you he's a cautious person. How could he smuggle the Predator bee to China to assassinate me without testing it? The road next to the farm is the runway for testing the Predator bee. With Mr. Yan's cautious personality, he wouldn't transport the Predator bee to Mexico, let alone test an American attack drone in Mexico. Doing so would cause unnecessary trouble. The Americans asked the FA organization to assassinate Charlotte and destroy the Thunder Horse military factory, so it was safest to test the Predator bee in the United States. Even if it was discovered by the American radar, there wouldn't be any trouble. After the test was completed, the Predator bee would be loaded onto the freighter and sent to Asia by sea. This was Mr. Yan's plan. Charlotte put away the hacker's computer and left the riverside walk. He got into a Land Rover Guardian and drove in the direction where the armed men had left. This was a second-hand car he bought in Washington State, and it was the car that took him away from Lockheed Martin Corporation and the CIA. About 2 kilometers later, the Land Rover Guardian caught up with the vehicles of the armed men. The speed of the vehicles that the armed men were in was not fast, which made Xia Lei feel a little surprised. He didn't want to get too close because it was likely to be discovered by the other party. But just as he was about to stop the car and wait for the other party to leave before following them, the vehicle of the armed men stopped in front of a hotel. The armed men got out of the car and entered the hotel. Charlotte parked the car on the side of the road and looked up at the hotel sign. The name of the hotel was Cozy Holiday, and it looked luxurious. Charlotte got out of the car and walked forward for a distance. His left eye passed through the translucent glass of the hotel lobby and saw the armed men of the FA organization who had just entered the lobby of the hotel. An old Caucasian man and an Indo-European Mexican girl walked toward the group of armed men. The group of fierce-looking armed men bowed their heads to the old Caucasian man and the Mexican girl. Charlotte's eyes locked on the lips of the old Caucasian man and prepared to read his lips. He was ready, but the other party just met him and then walked to the elevator. No one spoke during the whole process. Charlotte withdrew his gaze and felt strange. That old man and the Mexican girl seemed to have a powerful background. Are they also important figures in the FA organization? Is the person who went to China to assassinate me not Mr. Yan, but the leader of these two? A few minutes later, Charlotte also walked into the lobby of the hotel. He went to the front desk to book a room and then entered the room. As soon as he entered the room, he took out his hacker's computer from his backpack. Before the screen woke up, the black screen projected the face of a Thai man. He had thick eyebrows, thick lips, and a flat nose. His face looked like it had been smacked with a shovel, and it was not at all pleasing to the eye. This was his new face. He also had a new Thai name, Paxi. This meant excellence in Thai. Of course, his new fake passport was also in this name. The screen of the hacker's computer woke up, and Charlotte connected to the hotel's network. 2 minutes later, he entered the hotel's management system. He easily found the room that the old Caucasian man and the Mexican girl had booked, which was a presidential suite on the top floor of the hotel. Then he hacked into the hotel surveillance system, and the screen of the hacker's computer quickly showed the surveillance footage of the hotel. He called up the surveillance footage of the top floor. In front of the door of a presidential suite stood 2 armed men from the FA organization in black suits. The old Caucasian man and the Mexican girl were in that room, but because it was impossible for the hotel to install surveillance cameras in the guest room, he couldn't see what was going on in that room. The old Caucasian man and the Mexican girl have a powerful background. I have to figure out the identity of these 2 people. I had to find a way to get close to that room. Charlotte thought. At this moment, a surveillance image on the screen forcibly pulled his gaze over. It was the surveillance image of the lobby of the hotel. In that image, a group of people had just walked in. The one in the lead was none other than Mr. Yan. The 2 people walking next to Mr. Yan were also old acquaintances. One was Thon, and the other was Jack. What surprised Charlotte the most was that Caitlin was among this group of people. Charlotte's gaze moved to Caitlin's face. She didn't look happy. and there seemed to be a trace of fear in her eyes. Caitlin is just an ordinary woman. Why is she with these people? Charlotte couldn't understand. He didn't know if these people could speak, but he was ready to read their lips. Mr. Yin, Thon, Jack, and Caitlin came to the elevator surrounded by a group of armed men. An armed man reached out and opened the elevator door. Just as Mr. Yin and Thon entered the elevator, Caitlin suddenly turned and ran to the door. Jack grabbed Caitlin's arm and shouted, "What are you doing? Don't make trouble for me. I don't want to go. I want to go home." Caitlin struggled, but she couldn't break free from Jack's grip. In the elevator, Thon's face suddenly became gloomy. Thon's unhappy expression made Jack ruthless. He suddenly slapped Caitlin's face and said fiercely, "You'd better behave yourself. You're the one who caused the trouble. I'm helping you. Grow up." Caitlin was stunned. She covered her face and didn't know what to say. 2 drops of tears rolled down from the corner of her eyes. Jack said, "Mr. Thon, you guys go up first. I'll talk to my sister." Thon just nodded. The elevator door closed, and Jack dragged Caitlin to the corner of the wall. "Caitlin, don't you know what trouble you've gotten yourself into? Costa is a spy. He used you, and now you're facing charges of treason. If you don't cooperate, I can't help you. Do you understand?" Jack grabbed Caitlin's shoulder, frightened. "How can he be a spy?" "I don't believe it," Caitlin said. "Oomph. Do you really think he's in love with you? Don't be silly. Cinderella turning into a princess only happens in fairy tales." Jack's tone was very strict. "Your only way out now is to lure him out. Only by helping the CIB catch him can you get rid of the charges. But if he's really a spy, he's already escaped. How can I lure him out? I can't get through to him." Caitlin looked very painful. "Don't worry about that. I'll arrange it. You just need to cooperate. Remember, don't make trouble for me." Caitlin nodded. In the room, Charlotte gently slid a finger across Jack's neck. Chapter 9:38. A staff-only elevator went up and stopped when it reached the top floor of the hotel. The elevator door opened, and a hotel staff member pushed a cleaning cart into the hallway. The cleaner had an Asian face, thick eyebrows, thick lips, and a flat nose. He was very ordinary. He pushed the cleaning cart slowly to the other end of the hallway. 2 armed men from the FA organization, standing in front of the door, looked at the cleaner warily, their hands crossed between their legs. His posture was not a pose, but closer to the guns at his waist. The cleaner didn't make any strange movements. When he got close to the 2 armed men, he even smiled at them in a friendly manner. The 2 armed men just looked at the cleaner coldly, without the slightest reaction or friendly expression. A cleaner's smile, who cared? The cleaner pushed the cleaning cart and stopped beside the 2 armed men. At that moment, the 2 armed men both raised their hands, which meant that they were going to grab their guns at any time. The cleaner didn't seem to notice anything. He walked to the door opposite the 2 armed men and inserted a card into the identification device. With a soft click, the door opened. The cleaner pushed the card into the room opposite and closed the door behind him. The 2 armed men put their hands down. The cleaner was Charlotte. The card he used to open the door was not the card of this room, but his own card. Before he came to the top floor, he had already turned off the identification device of this room door in the hotel management system. So let alone using his own room card, he could even use a card to open the door. This room was also a presidential suite, but it had not been rented out yet. This was also the reason why Charlotte chose this room. If there were guests in this room, he couldn't do anything here. After entering the room, Charlotte stopped at the door. His eyes penetrated the 2 wooden doors and entered the opposite room. The opposite room was very lively. More than a dozen armed men occupied the hallways, windows, and doorways of the room, forming an impregnable protection circle for the big shots. Jack was in the room, too, but Caitlin wasn't there. She was most likely locked up in another room, but Charlotte was not in the mood to care about her at this time. "Mr. Thun, I heard that you had an accident. What's the situation?" Mr. Yin asked. Thun said, "Mr. Yin, you're really well informed. Such a confidential matter has reached your ears so quickly. It seems that I have to go back and check your source of information. He, the old man laughed. Mr. Thorne, the FA is not like those terrorist organizations in the Middle East. We have our own way of survival, and we also have our own beliefs and laws. Whatever news we get, don't be surprised. If you really want to investigate, I want to tell you that the results of your investigation might make you regret it. There was a hint of threat in his tone. Who is this? Thon looked at the old white man. He wasn't afraid at all. In the other room, Charlotte was slightly surprised. Even Thon didn't know the identity of this old man. What kind of role did he play in the FA organization? Mr. Yin looked at the old man and seemed to be asking for his opinion. The old man just nodded slightly. Mr. Yin looked at Thon. This is Mr. Augustman. He is the teacher of Night Masha. He trains soldiers for our FA organization. According to you Americans, you can think of Mr. Augustman as our instructor. The instructor of the FA organization. That was the identity of the old man. This old man was also the highest-ranking person in the FA organization that Charlotte had met so far. There was a hint of awe in Thon's eyes. Mr. Augustman, nice to meet you. You're welcome. Augustman said, Mr. Thon, I know you. You are the intelligence director of the CIB in Lockheed Martin Corporation. You collect military intelligence for Lockheed Martin Corporation all over the world, especially the military intelligence of Russia and China. At the same time, you also collect and sort out intelligence about Lockheed Martin Corporation for the CIB. Lockheed Martin Corporation is the most powerful arms giant in the world. You are a watchdog and guardian placed in Lockheed Martin Corporation by the U.S. government. Your position in the CIB is much more important than those Asian directors or African directors, isn't it? Thon smiled. I'm just an ordinary staff member. My boss is the U.S. government. There is no difference between senior and junior. Democracy, huh? Augustman laughed, but there was a hint of disdain in his smile. Mr. Yin pointed to the Mexican woman sitting next to Augustman. He said, This is Salita. She is Mr. Augustman's student. Miss Salita, nice to meet you, Thon said. The woman called Salita nodded to Thon. Mr. Thon, nice to meet you. In the future, we will all work for the U.S. government. I hope you can support us. Of course, that's for sure, Thon said. Augustman said, Mr. Thon, you didn't come here to get to know me and Salita, did you? Tell me, are you worried about us? Or are you worried about your drone? Thon didn't answer Augustman's question. He looked back at Jack, who was standing behind him. Jack understood and said, Mr. Augustman, since you already know what happened to Lockheed Martin Corporation, I have analyzed everything that happened. I analyzed all that had happened, and I had every reason to suspect that the man had come here. I also have every reason to suspect that his target is the drone that we delivered to you. In the other room, Xiaolei really wanted to kick Jack's face when he saw how confident Jack was in his speech. This guy had guessed his motive and purpose more than once. Jack, he's really a natural spy, an agent. The three big shots of the FA organization looked at each other at the same time. Jack continued to describe his analysis and thoughts. He pretended to be me and sneaked in a Lockheed Martin Corporation. I suspect that he's looking for the Predator B that Lockheed Martin Corporation customized for you. Who are you? Augustman looked at Jack. Thon said, he's a technician for Lockheed Martin Corporation, but he's also one of my people. He's very smart, and he'll have a good future in the CIA. Augustman said, tell me, Jack, you said that the person sneaked in a Lockheed Martin Corporation for the drone. Then I want to ask you, in that situation, it's impossible for him to steal the drone, and he won't be stupid enough to destroy the drone in Lockheed Martin Corporation. Can you tell me why he's looking for the drone? Maybe he wants to implant a puppet program. Jack said, if he achieves his goal, then that Predator B will be under his command and not yours. He can control the Predator B to attack any target. You know, the 2 precision-guided missiles we gave you are specially made and powerful. Once they explode in the city, the death toll will probably be thousands. The 3 big shots of the FA organization looked at each other again. After exchanging glances, Mr. Yin said, he seems to have missed the right time. According to the information I got, when he sneaked in a Lockheed Martin Corporation, we were in the lumberyard. We've also checked the drone, and there's no trace of it being touched. Your analysis may be reasonable, but I believe there's no problem. It's better to be careful, Jack said. We have two purposes here. One is to find that guy, and the other is to check the drone again. We've already checked it. Mr. Yin frowned. Jack said, I know your people have checked it, but they're not the most professional. I'm the one who made the drone. I can check if there's anything wrong with it now. You Americans are really troublesome, Salita said. Jack said, this is a matter of great importance, and we can't make any mistakes. This is the first cooperation between the FA organization and us. You don't want to mess it up, do you? Augustman said, this guy is good, Mr. Thorne. It seems that you found the best successor. Thank you. Jack looked very polite. I want to check the Predator B as soon as possible. Is that okay? Mr. Yin said. Our professionals are already assembling the drone. It should be ready by now. What will they do after the assembly? Jack suddenly looked a little nervous. Mr. Yin said, of course it'll be a test flight. After the test flight, we'll ship it to Asia, where we won't have a chance to test it. You can't expect us to test it in Mexico, can you? The Mexican Air Force will shoot it down. Tell your people not to test it. I'll go and check it right away, Jack said. Well, I'll take you to have a look now. But don't contact them. They need my order to take off the drone, Mr. Yin said. Mr. Yin said. He glanced at Augustman and Zillida and said, do you want to go with me? Augustman said, I won't go. You take them. Salita also shook her head. The two were obviously dismissive of Jack's analysis. Mr. Yin, Jack, and Thorne left the room. Mr. Yin said to the two armed men standing at the door, you two come to the farm with me. The two armed men guarding the door also left with Mr. Yin. It wasn't until Mr. Yin and the others passed through the corridor and entered the elevator that Charlotte opened the door and left with the dining cart. At the corner of the elevator and the stairwell, where the surveillance cameras couldn't see, he took out a cheap mobile phone and skillfully dialed a number. After the phone was connected, he said in a gentle voice, Hey, baby, do you recognize my voice? I miss you, my baby. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.